Hey, good day, everybody, and welcome back to Pirkei Avos, the Ethics of the Fathers, live from Israel with Rabbi Chaim Coffman. And today is a milestone episode. It's our 100th episode. It may very well be our 101st because we did do one live stream on directly onto Roku. I just can't recall if I added that onto the YouTube stream. But let's treat it as a milestone. It's, I believe, it's our episode 100 in this. File that we have on our YouTube, No Hide World Center YouTube channel. And I believe today he's still continuing with chapter 2, Mishnah 8, part 21. And hopefully we'll finish this Mishnah up today because I know it goes on with even better stuff. This course just keeps getting better and better and better. And who better to share it with us than Rabbi Chaim Checkmate Coffman. So let's just jump right in and see how he's doing today. Rabbi Coffman, so good to be with you, sir. We missed you. Tell the audience how your daughter's wedding went and how was Purim for you and how's everything in Israel. And we're glad to be back with you.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be here. Last week was a whirlwind week, preparations, the day itself, seeing a bunch of my daughters get made up. And, the custom is, you have to have an updo, right? Have to have their hair, done in a fancy way, and all that. So we had the preparation. That was Thursday. The weather was, relatively cloudy. Weather wasn't great. And then I saw people coming in. It looked like rain. I mean, it was raining. And miracle of all miracles, we go up to the canopy and it stopped the rain. Right? It was raining before, totally stopped. And it was very interesting that as rabbi was reading the ksuva, reading the marriage document. So water was dripping down from the top of the canopy. So the head of the yeshiva took out like a rag from his pocket and started like wiping it off.
Did it smear?
Wiping off the water. Wiping up the water so like nothing gets smudged, none of the names or the dates or whatever, got smudged. So, I can't wait to see the video because it was actually pretty funny. Then someone brought an umbrella just to make sure, whatever. And then, someone had told me, they said, wow, you must be an absolute miracle worker. He said after the ceremony, because it didn't rain, because it stopped raining. Then someone in the hall said, yeah, we had a wedding a few days ago and it was rain, it was hail. And then the groom walked out. And then it stopped raining. So I thought it was my own miracle. And all of a sudden, okay, I got the wind knocked out of my sail or sails knocked out of my wind, whatever. However you say it. So in any case, the wedding was, call it the wedding of the century. It was really unbelievably lively. It's unbelievably lively there. And then Friday, so come Friday, we're all, dead tired. And we had, these festive meals, what we call Shever Brachos, these 7 blessings that you say after the end of, when a person gets married. So you have these 7 festive meals, every day. So we had on Shabbos, so we had both families together, 3 meals on Shabbos. And we went by a friend of mine, not about an hour away from where I live on Sunday. Then we're back in where I live on Monday, somewhere else on Tuesday. And Wednesday night was the last night, which was the end of the fast of Esther. So, didn't really, have that much room to eat, but okay. So we had the last of these, festive meals and, the person we had it by, knows both families very well. So someone came in playing a keyboard, we didn't get finished till like, 11:30, 11:45. So every night, up until Purim was, late. It was just, late for good things. So we're basically, everyone just like,
lots of joy,
dead as a doornail till you got to Purim. And then Purim's a whole different thing. Purim was, also drinking, eating, celebrating this, that. It was, whatever. It's also, like pretty wild. So, now get back into the everyday, get back to hopefully all my school classes, tomorrow, starting off with this, symbolic. I think it's more than symbolic. Anyone who's been listening, to these classes over the last year and a half, 2 years, I give people a lot of credit listening to me. Not easy, not easy listening to me. It's funny. I mentioned that.
Well, you've put up with me for all these episodes.
This friend of mine wore like Hasidim wear these, what they call a bekisher. It's like one of these robes. So his wife bought him a special robe for Purim. It was green. it was like green and all like, paisley green, whatever. So, the obvious line is, come on, we're gonna quote Harav Agona Tzaddik, the most righteous Kermit the Frog. It's hard being green. Hard being green, but whatever. It was a lot of fun. It was just, unbelievable seeing the happy couple. We saw them over Shabbos and, saw them during the week and whatever. Very, very blessed. I have tremendous, tremendous things to be blessed for. Life's not easy, in general, but we got to be. There are many things we have to be thankful for. And a person marries off their child, and you get along with the other side. That's also a bonus. But at the same time, it's a tremendous thing. Tremendous thing to see.
Mazel tov.
Whatever. It was just unbelievable, wild. It was a lot of energy, and I can't wait to see the video because people said I've never seen, like the father of bride just like dance and this and that. It's funny. I'll just mention one other thing. When there's a custom, you make you sign a document. You have two witnesses that sign the document before the ceremony. Some people do it, when they get engaged, and others they say by people live outside of Israel. They do it right before the ceremony, and that is you have a document. Basically, they agree to get married. You have witnesses sign on it, and the custom is the mother of the bride and the mother of the groom, they break a plate. It's a custom, like to seal the deal. They break a plate. Everyone says Mazel Tov. He puts on his, like his white gown, his kittel, which is symbolic of purity of Yom Kippur, right? They fast on the day of their wedding, unless it's a day they don't have to fast, right? So of course, I said, now why do I mention all this? Why do I mention all this? Because I told the father of the groom, I said, I'm telling you, when they break that plate, when our wives break the plate, I'm going to get up and scream and say, showtime! It's time for showtime, meaning that, the ceremony is going to take place. Now, I don't know if he thought I was kidding. I was just, talking outside of my elbow, whatever the case is. So anyway, they broke the plate. He's putting on the kittel, and I'm like, showtime! Let's go! Lighting the candles, whatever.
Ready to roll, yeah.
Anyway, it was a tremendous time. Yeah, tremendous time, and shall get better, Emir Hashem with God's help, and this week, like I said, getting back to
we're glad to be back with you, Rabbi. We missed you last week.
Just as much as I can before, Passover is about a little less than a month away, so these next definitely 3.5 weeks, before Passover, hopefully, we're going to be back to hopefully back to a normal schedule. Last week was just a crazy schedule. In any case, this is episode 100 or 101, doesn't really matter, right? But it is a milestone. It is a tremendous milestone. I don't think there's any question.
I know in a lot of 2 to 3 hour classes, it's yeah. I played.
I would always say, how do I know? Certain people are going to have a portion of the world to come if they can listen. They can listen to Musar for however long, to ethics, and they want to be better and they want to change. That's a tremendous sign. That's a tremendous thing, because not everyone wants to change. A lot of people are not interested in change. A lot of people are interested in staying mediocre. They'll do what they do. Doesn't matter.
Not our listeners. They're eager.
No, that's good. So I'm saying, unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that's not interested. So if they're not interested, whatever happens, happens. Whatever they do, and that's it. And they have a hard time dealing with life whenever, God forbid, there's a tragedy or difficulty, right? People say, fix it. Just like, light bulb goes out. Fix it now. Okay. I don't have a light bulb. I have to get one. It's not the end of the world. The light went out.
They're sold out like toilet paper.
No, that's it. That's essentially it. And, it's a sad thing, tremendously sad thing. But you know what? At the end of the day, anyone, who saw this wedding, it's a secular Jew. You cannot say this is random. You cannot say this is not unbelievable. You can say, okay, it's not for me. You can say this lifestyle is not for me, and I'm not going to change it and this and that. But deep down, there's no question about it. You see, there's something magical there. There's something special you can't put into words. No. You can't. You just, you see, it was a few days before Purim. So they had all this what we call shtick, all this like funny stuff. People, they have people wear funny things or whatever. So they had people dressed up as like stuffed animals. They had these like bear costume and something else, and I think I had like a whole bunch of things. I had a funny clown hat, my hat with like a few ties, like what do you call it, like a yellow tie, all this, whatever. It's all part of the fun, right? It's all part of the fun. You see something like that, you can't say, oh, this is just an ordinary thing. Right, bisexual marriage is a whole different thing. The music is very soft. Unless even if they're Jewish, they do, let's say, they dance around what they call a hora, and they dance around. Okay, big deal. You got like 100 people really into it. They want to, make the bride and the groom happy. They're going out of their minds. They get, like I always say, what's the best part of a wedding? Forget the ceremony and everything else. When the bride and groom come out of their room, and then, someone picks up the groom and they just like dance, they just like run in and back and forth. You can't even put that into words. Right. So again,
joy. Yeah.
Feeling very blessed. I don't think there's any question. And now we're back to the everyday. Now we're back, back to normal here, so to speak. Now, what do we get now? We are in chapter 2, Mishnah 8, part 21, and Dan is going to say, finish the Mishnah. Okay,
finish the Mishnah.
Finish it. We'll see how far I can go before I put him to sleep, or if I put everyone else to sleep, and see where this is going to go. What do we say? What did we speak about 2 weeks ago? We spoke 2 weeks ago. We said the more charity, the more peace. Right? So we spoke about the idea, of giving charity. We mentioned that Jews exponentially give more charity than any other group combined, right? The UJA, the United Jewish Appeal, the UJC, United Jewish Committee, I think it's committee, they raise almost $500 million a year.
Wow, that's huge.
But Halavai, I would say, would go to good things, but they raise a tremendous amount of money, right? Religious Jews, there are two main mitzvahs on Purim. What are the two main mitzvahs? Matanos Levyonim, gifts to the poor, and Shalach Manos. Right? Shalach Manos, you give like 2 food gifts to somebody. Give them, let's say, a piece of cake, a candy or whatever. You give them 2 different types of food stuff, and you give out Matanos Levyonim, gifts to the poor. Right? So meaning charity. So it's interesting that the mitzvah is that if you have a choice of to make more of these party gifts or whatever, to give to people, to give more of that or to give more charity, what's the obligation? Charity. You give more charity. I know a friend of mine, goes around collecting on the morning of Purim. He goes around collecting for different families, right? He raises, in a couple of hours, probably $2,000-$3,000. Right? I think I say, oh, that's not so much, considering, where he's collecting from and this and that. Other places might be, a lot more, but, exponentially Jews give more than anyone else. It's just a proven fact, because the Gemara says there are 3 characteristics of a Jew that are characteristic of the Jewish people. They're Rachmanim, Baishanim, and Gimelus Chasadim. They have compassion for others, Rachmanim, even though you can have a secular Jew, and having compassion can mean save the whales. It can mean have more compassion for your dog than you would maybe for something else. So compassion can go to other extremes as well, but it's a general characteristic. They have compassion, they get embarrassed easily, and they do chesed. They do acts of loving kindness, which that's one of the 3 things, if you remember way back when, episode number 1, one of the 3 things that the world stands on is chesed, right? Torah, avodah, and chesed, right? Avodah meaning either giving sacrifices or serving God or prayer, right, etc. But chesed. So when it comes to giving money, when it comes to charity, money that we have, you're going to say, I earned it and I worked hard and all this. But okay, we mentioned many times. And, I mentioned this in a number of times I spoke during these festive parties I had when my daughter got married. And that is the Chovos Levavos and duties of the heart. By the way, I give this class every week on Tuesday, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Just give a plug for that. We're in the gate of self-accounting. You want to think this is bad. Part 21, there's in the gate of self-accounting, in the 3rd chapter, there are 30 aspects. The Chovos Levavos says, duties of the heart, there are 30 aspects of taking self-accounting. I think I've given 37 classes. They're each only an hour. I've given 37. We're going to hit number 14. So imagine I'm going to have like 96, 98. There's just, a ton to speak about over there. Right? But the point is that whatever we do is a gift. Whatever we get back, is a gift. Because we mentioned before, why should God give us reward for what we do? Because we're going to see the next mission if I get there. I don't know if I'm going to get there today. You might have my head, but let's see. If I get there, what does Mishnah 9 say? It says, if you studied much Torah, don't take credit for yourself because that's what you're created to do. So now you want reward. Oh, so it's very funny. Now, I'll mention this in passing because I've said it before. But on Purim, so, I definitely drank. So the wife of my daughter's mother-in-law now, right? Her mother-in-law grew up close to where I grew up in Boston. So I was saying all these different Boston colloquiums. It's over, right? It's over. Right? So I had a lot of fun. So anyway, so I mentioned that, and a few other things, and then I mentioned, and I'll get to why I'm mentioning this in a second. But I said, do you remember what a hoodsie is? She's like, a hoodsie? She's like, what's a hoodsie? Right? We mentioned this before. It was a Dixie cup, chocolate ice cream. And I know Dan over here is nodding because he remembers, because he likes ice cream. Probably never missed an ice cream a day, right? But, so he got in the Dixie cup. Come on, I'm in a great mood now. So he got in the Dixie cup, half chocolate, half vanilla, right? One of these wooden spoons. Now, why do you call it a hoodsie? Because what was the name of the company? Hood. That was the name of the company, right? So they called it a hoodsie. That's what we called it. So now, why do I mention a hoodsie? What's the context? Context is we're doing what we're supposed to do, right? So the Chovos Levavos says, why do you deserve reward? You're doing what we said in the next Mishnah, which we'll get there, hopefully, right? And that is why you think you're so great. That's what you're created to do. Not only that, you want rewards. So yeah, I want a hoodsie. Look what I'm doing. Look at my self-sacrifice, right? Look how much money was spent, for the Purim meal, for Shabbos, for other things, for mitzvahs. There's a colloquium, a Talmudic colloquium, a Talmudic dictum that is mitzvahs cost geld. Mitzvahs cost money, right? Now, you can do a mitzvah in a crummy way. You'll still get credit. You might get a C-, Coffman would say, right? But you could get credit for it. Or you could do it to the best of your ability within your means. So now a person's gonna say, so I kept Torah and mitzvahs. Where's my hoodsie? Where's my reward? Comes along the Chovos Levavos. Comes along duties of the heart. What does he say? Why do you get reward? Why does God give you a reward? You know why He gives you a reward? You don't deserve reward. Because that's what you're created to do. Chapter 2, Mishnah 9. That's what you're created to do. You're created to learn. You're created to keep mitzvahs. So if that's my job, why in the world do I get a hoodsie? Why should I say I get a hoodsie? It comes on the Chovos Levavos, unbelievable thing. Chovos Levavos there says, you know what? You know why I get a hoodsie? You know why you should get reward? Because God says, I do chesed. It's an act of loving kindness.
Amen.
An act of loving kindness. You say, listen, I sacrificed myself for this, for that, for the other thing, right? So you figure, we do understand there'll be a reward in the world to come. But if that's what you're created to do, and that's your obligation as a Jew or a non-Jew, whatever a non-Jew is obligated to do. So if that's the case, why should I get reward? You're commanded by the Be'er Shem El Moshe Lemor. God commanded you. So if God commanded you, what are you saying over here? I deserve this, I deserve that. It's a command, right? Don't be a pig. It's a command. The Chovos Levavos says, in duties of the heart, you know I get reward? Because God says, you know what? It's a chesed. It's an act of chesed. It's an act of love and kindness, because the reality is you don't deserve spit my language. That's what you're obligated to do. Finished. If that's what you're obligated to do, no hoodsie. You don't deserve. So now it comes to money, right? Money's a pikadon. It's like God gives it to you. You're going to say, what do you mean? I worked hard. I earned it, right? What does the Torah tell me in the book of Deuteronomy, right? When a person's going to kick God in the face, they're going to say, Koach otzim v'yad yasu t'chayil hazeh. right? What does that mean? I did it by the work of my own hands. God was nowhere. I worked hard. I did this. Now let me ask the $1.5 million because we're up in the odds, right? $1.5 million question, and that is when I put my best foot forward, and that's what my obligation is, right? When it comes to certainly making a living and other things, I put my best foot forward. Do I always get what I want in the end? Is the end going to justify the means? No. Why not? Because I could put my best foot forward and come up with a goose egg. Or I could come up with very little. Or maybe I'll come up with more. It's ups and downs. No one is just on automatic pilot here, right? That's not the way it works. But a person's got to say, I did that, right? Like someone once told me, I became who I am despite my parents. Now, what did they mean by that? Right? They meant, maybe the parents didn't raise them the best way. A lot of different issues could very well be. Not saying I disagree, right? In such a case, but what are they saying? They're saying it's like I took myself out of the womb. Really? Say parents didn't do anything. They didn't clothe you. They didn't give you food. They didn't take care of your needs, right? I'm not talking about totally, parents that don't know what they're doing, and just left the baby in a trash can, like different things, right? We're talking normal, normal things. Now, the parents always know what they're doing? No. They ever take any parenting classes? No. Right? So, is there a guarantee how your kids are going to turn out? There's no guarantee, right? There is no guarantee, but I will say like this. And people, and secular people will not make this connection most of the time. They're going to look at my kids and they're going to say, you got lucky. They're going to say you got lucky. It has nothing to do with Judaism. Oh, really? It doesn't have anything to do with how they're taught and how they're brought up and the values that they get. Oh, no, you're lucky. Now, could their kids that grow up in a proper environment come sour and do everything that they're not supposed to do? 100%. It can happen. We have 15, 20% dropout rate maybe? But even if that is the case, can they go sour? 100% despite the best education. Right now, why would they go sour? It's not really the topic for now, but why would they go sour? A million different reasons. Could be they have difficult learning. Could be there's marital problems between the parents. Could be their money problems. Could be, it could be
Numerous.
It could be that a person, I think, for this generation, forget about abuse and other things. What's the main thing that's going to cause the person to go off today? Is the power of the street. Is the power of having something in your hand, i.e. a smart, stupid phone. Right? Which I've seen, which there are certain people I just will never even start a conversation with because I got this hand. Either they shut it off, and if they don't shut it off, I'll barely speak to them. Why? Because their face is in the phone. You take your face out of the phone, we'll have a conversation. You don't want to take your face out of the phone?
Yeah. Show some courtesy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea, it comes in handy. People say it definitely comes in handy, for different things, which it probably does.
But it does
but at the same
distract
time,
as well,
causes a lot more damage. I think it causes a lot more damage. But that's not even the point. The point is, once the person's tied into that, and they're tied into that world, they're subjugated to that. They're subjugated themselves to their evil inclination. Once you give into your evil inclination, or a person says, I don't care, I just want to go haywire the other way, right? So what's going to happen? It's all about desire. It's not like people coming up with all these philosophical questions and saying, hey, where was God during the Holocaust? Why did God kill 6 million people? They're not asking that question. Maybe some people are asking why people suffer. Maybe. They're not asking that question. They're not asking, if I pray, why can't I say my own prayers? Why do I have to keep saying for a Jew the same prayers over and over? You had for Shabbos, you had for festivals, different things. Why can't I say my own prayers? Right? Why do we need sacrifices? Why do we have to learn about the list goes on, right? There's a huge laundry list of questions people can have. And they're legit. I'm not going to say they're not legit, but people throw them out there as a block. That's not the question today. The question is they want to do what they want to do, and they want to be justified. And they don't want you to tell them they're doing anything wrong.
Nope.
Right? Even though the Torah does. So no one wants to hear what they're doing is wrong. So They want to do what they want to do. Okay. You can do what you want to do. Right? But you're not telling me the Torah is not true. You're not bringing proof, and we mentioned this many times. You're not telling me that. It's like having an argument Well, they'll make a big distinction here, right? With Stephen Hawking. And I knock out Stephen Hawking because I read one article of physics in Wikipedia. Is anyone going to do that? Nobody would have the guts to do that. No one would have the absolute guts to do such a thing. They'd be absolutely stupid to do such a thing, right? Oh, but when it comes to Judaism, my opinion is just as valid as Rashi. My opinion is just as valid as it. And I can say whatever I want and it doesn't matter. Of course it matters, right? You're bringing out information that you have a second grade education. Not even a second grade education. And here you're claiming X, Y, and Z, right? So, yeah, I would take issue with that. It's not about truth. It's just about justifying what you do, right? Now, even without that, that's not the topic, right? So now, we're half an hour in. We haven't hit the topic yet, right? Charity. That's what we're speaking about. Jewish people give more than anyone else. Now, we mentioned God gives money to a person. It's called like giving collateral, right? It's called like a picadon. He gives you money. He takes care of your needs. Whether you think you need more or not doesn't matter. He takes care of your needs, but you have to remember one thing. And that is, if you have to give. You have to give at least a tenth of what you own. Sorry, of what you make.
Even Noahites?
Right, you get 10%. Say again?
Even B'nai Noach?
B'nai Noach should give charity. They don't have to give 10%. They don't have to give a specific amount. But they should know that the money that they're making, where does it come from? It's not based on what you do. And that we've seen many times, right? You see people have, barely any education and they make millions, right? Pet rock. You remember the pet rock, right? Someone made millions, pet rock, Rubik's Cube, spinning thing, whatever, all kinds, the person who invented the wooden umbrellas. The small wooden umbrellas goes into cocktails. Person made a mint. A mint.
Oh, the little paper ones, yeah.
Yeah, so why? Why did they make a mint? Because God wanted to have money for whatever reason. I'm not even talking about sports. Sports is a different issue, right? But things that have any significance whatsoever, and God says, okay, I'm going to let it go. You're going to say, well, the guy got lucky. Why did he get lucky? We don't believe in luck, right? There's no such thing as luck. We saw that from the Purim story, what happened to Haman, right? But we don't believe in luck. So if you don't believe in luck, why did this person do it? He's got no education. Makes no sense. You're not a fool, right? He doesn't have a 20 IQ, okay? Then he'd be mentally challenged. Not the brightest person, but he came up with an idea. Came up with some idea. Maybe he's a little bit creative, fine. And he's okay, I'm going to market this. And he markets it and he makes the mint.
Yeah.
He makes the mint. Now, what are the odds? If other people tried to do it, they wouldn't make anything. Why? Because it's a stupid idea. Here's a pet rock. You don't have to feed it. You don't have to walk it. Beautiful thing. Who in the world is going to pay money for a rock? It doesn't make any sense, right? So you're going to say, well, how do you know God did it? Give me any other excuse. Guy does, he marketed, he got luck. We don't believe in luck, right? Everything is calculated. So if everything is calculated, no matter what you do, no matter how much knowledge you have, either you'll be successful because God wants you to be or not, right? I use myself as an example. Got involved in real estate before 2008. I took a course from a guru, right, for 6 months, etc. And there were people making money, and I was doing the same thing. I was doing the exact same thing before I veered off. I did the exact same thing, right? What happened? I would get on a call twice a week or once a week. So you're exactly. No, but it works in every market. So if it works in every market and I'm doing everything I should be doing, there's something else going on. When I would hear a conference call once a week and I hear people call in and what are you doing and how you doing and this and that, these people do not sound like Rhodes Scholars to me, right? And I'm not saying, I'm the brightest of the brightest, whatever. These were whatever, normal, average people. Some went to college, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? But they were doing the same thing I was doing and they're making money and I'm not. Now, what's the reason? You're going to say it has to do with your market. Works in any market, right? It has to do with your advertising and I'm doing everything else everyone else is doing. The exact same thing. I'm following the same blueprint. And everyone else is being successful and you're getting a goose egg. So what's the answer? It's your bad luck. We're going to come back to the same thing. It's your bad. Why is it my bad luck? This works 100% of the time. 100% of the time, you can't say it doesn't work in your area. It works everywhere. Proven, right? So what's going on? So I asked my Rebbe about it, called him up, and I said, I don't understand. I'm doing everything else that everyone is doing. So he said, there has to be a block up in heaven, and he told me a certain thing to do, and I did it, and then things started to move. So I called him back. He said, call me back in 2 weeks, tell me what happened. And I said, it's unbelievable. I said, but how did you know? I said, how did you know? He said, if you're doing your ishtadlus, you're putting your best foot forward, and you're not getting results that everyone else is getting, there's something else going on. There's no such thing as bad luck. Right? There's something else spiritually that's going on. Right? So we have to remember, if a person's been given money, they have to know how to give it. They can give a maximum up to 20% of what they make. Because if you give more than 20%, then you might need others to help you down the line. You don't want to give away all your money, right? But you have to know how to give it. And even if you don't have a lot to give, you give what you give. You give what you can give, right? Someone once asked the rabbi and said, should I work more to give more charity? What's the answer? No. Who says you have to work harder and extra in order to give more charity? You work, you make money, you give to charity. The other time you have to learn, right? You have to find time to learn. So charity, who's it helping, right? Is it helping the person that they're giving to, obviously? If the person's receiving, they're getting benefit, but it definitely helps the person giving, understanding that what we have is a gift. Because no matter what we do, God can say, well, that's great. I'm not going to help you here. And if it doesn't get blessed, no matter what you do, no matter what your IQ is, change this, change that, marketing, whatever, it's not going to go. You need that blessing, right? So the Jewish people have compassion on others. We mentioned they give charity, and God's going to give them and help them measure for measure with charity as well, even if they're not fitting to receive it. Why? Right? Because in other words, if I help somebody else, even not in a major way, but you help someone else, God says, well, that's a great thing. He's helping someone else, really doesn't have that much. He's giving to someone else. God says, I'm going to help him. Measure for measure. Right? So by giving charity, God has compassion on you. Because what are you realizing? You're realizing, where's the money come from? You can say, I did it. Okay, I put in the effort. Does that mean I'm going to have the success I want? No, not necessarily. Right? I mentioned before, right, in great detail. 13 years, I've been giving classes to converts, and 2 years ago, the heavens opened up like it's never happened. And if you would ask me today, is it going to happen like that again? According to nature, I don't see it. Because it hasn't happened. It happened, above nature. Now, why did that happen? Could be any number of reasons. That's, it really doesn't matter, right? But the point is that you put your best foot forward. That's not a guarantee. That's not a guarantee, nope. Right? You would think, if you work, you'll make money. Right now, if you're a big CG whiz, you should be making all the money in the world. Right? Right? So we know the drill. That's not going to be the case.
You give so much, right? You attract all the takers.
Yeah, that's also true. That's a different, whatever. It's a different issue. Definitely a different issue. But the point over here is getting sidetracked. Is putting my best foot forward does not guarantee success.
No.
Right? That we understand. Now, what did the Mishnah over here say? The Mishnah over here said the more charity, the more peace.
The more what?
Right? So where's the peace over here? The more peace.
Peace.
The more shalom, more peace.
Excellent.
Right? Because if I give charity, then what happens? The Jewish people bring peace between them and the Father in heaven. Because God's going to say, wow, unbelievable thing. I give the Jewish people money, I sustain them, some more, some less, whatever the case is. And look, they take what they earned, they worked hard for it, and they're going to give it away. They're going to give some of it away. Now you're going to say that's their obligation. You're right. But when someone makes money, even if they make substantial money, someone comes to them and asks them for help, right? Or, an organization, whatever. Or you make it better, even an individual. And the person looks down on them and says, why should I help you? Why don't you help yourself? Why don't you work hard? The person's kind of smug. The person's kind of conceited. Why should I help you? Well, I'm struggling. I'm working as much as I can, etc. But they don't want to take out money from their own pocket to help someone else. Because they let them work harder. I worked hard. Look what happened to me. Again, one thing has nothing to do with another. So what does it do? So God looks down and he says, what an unbelievable thing, right? My offspring, right? Children of Israel, right? I shouldn't say offspring, right? My people, the children of Israel understand. They understand what to do with money, right? And what should they do with money? They realize it's not theirs. Because since God understands money's not theirs, it's really given on loan. It's given on loan by God to use the right way. So if you've been given and you've been blessed in that sense, I would say learn how to give. At least 10%. Learn how to give, because if you don't know how to give, God can take it away. God can say, why did I give you money for? I saw somewhere, I don't remember the source, but I saw somewhere that was brought down that 1 in 1,000 rich people go to Gan Eden, go to paradise. 1 in 1,000.
Wow.
Why 1,000? Why such a small percentage? Because when you have significant money, the last thing you want to do is help others. Unless you really realize where you came from and this and that, so you want to give back, fine, right? But there are people that have a lot of money. They don't want. Why should they help others? They want to build mansions, have all these cars, whatever, and you see that by professional athletes. Some will set up some, education foundations, some other things. A lot of them just blow it. They blow it on cars. They blow it on all kinds of things, right? So by helping others, God sees they understand money is not their own. It's given on loan. If it's given to you on loan, then you best know how to use it. Because if you don't use it properly, God can take it away. And he can take it away in a nasty way. Now, this is the whole topic, in and of itself. There are Jews. We mentioned before the UJA. They raise all this money. How many trees can you dig in Israel? I'm not saying they're using all the money for that. But the problem, I would say probably a good percentage of that money is being wasted. Now, even if you tell me, I think I saw a statistic years ago that 6% goes to education. Let's say. So now you're talking $500 million, right? You do the math. 10% is $50 million, right? 5% is 5, right? Right? So you're talking $5 million for education. Hey, that's not a small amount of money. That's not a small amount of money. But at the same time, what type of education is it going to? Is it going to Torah education? No. They'll say they can give whoever they want. You're right. They can give to whoever they want. And I mentioned this before also. I had a relative, right, that helped raise $100 million for a non-Jewish charity. Now, I hope they got some level for it, right? Helping raise all that kind of money, etc. But imagine all the widows, orphans, Jewish schools that they could have given to. Right? You're going to say, come on.
Yeah.
What's so bad about giving to a non-Jewish charity? Now, technically, if it's not for idolatry or other things, I would say maybe it's not an issue. Maybe it's okay, but isn't it true? We're going to take care of our own. We're going to take care of our own. You can say, oh, that's selfish. Well, who else is going to take care of us? No one else is going to take care of us. Non-Jews aren't going to take care of us. And they shouldn't take care of us. Right? God will take care of everything. That's true. That 100% is true. But at the end of the day, we have to look out for ourselves. So our charity is going to go into our community. right? Others would say the same thing. There's not just someone's going to rip me to shreds and say, "Hey, come on." That's elitism. You're a leader in the nation. You should be helping the nations. We do help the nations, right? They want to come to us. They want to learn. Very good. I have to be there and take care of the nations. If it's a Kirtosha, right? If it's someone who lives in Israel and not true, and they keep the Noahide laws, then there's a mitzvah to sustain them. Who says I have to sustain the world? Right? We're going to look out for our own. So, therefore, we have to realize what we have is really given on loan. And if it's given on loan, you best not use it. Because if you don't use it properly, God giveth, God taketh away. And he can take it away in a nasty way. Right? Person can lose everything overnight. It can happen overnight.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no control. No control. I'm not talking whatever. It can be stolen. It can be bad investment. Business partner runs off. I mean, all kinds of things. All kinds of things over here. So when the Mishnah here says that charity is going to bring peace, because God understands that we got the message. And the message is we're going to help others. And we realize the money's not really ours. And the money's given on loan. At the same time, why do we say 1 in 1,000 rich people go to Gan Eden, go to paradise? Imagine a person got a lot of money. They help people. Come Sunday, for 3 hours straight, people coming in and out, asking for help. Person can't get out. Family gets burdened by it. They get burnt out. They get burned out. But at the end of the day, if God gives you, okay, so figure out a way how to do it. Figure out a day, people come, certain hours, this, that. Figure out a way. You're not going to get burnt out, because what could happen? You could get angry. You give money, the Rambam says, you give with the sour face, you lose. You don't get the mitzvah. It doesn't matter how much money you get. You lose. Right? Essentially, you lose. So I would say, since I've been on both sides of the coin, it's definitely better to be able to give than have to receive. Having to receive is embarrassing. You're putting your best foot forward, this and that. Okay. That's why Turner's Rufus, right? Turner's Rufus asked Rabbi Akiva, if your God is so powerful, he can do anything, why are there so many poor people among the Jewish people? Right? Interesting question. What did Rabbi Akiva answer? Rabbi Akiva said, because he gives rich people the ability to have a portion of the world to come. Because if there were no poor people, they wouldn't have a portion of the world to come. So you're right. God could take care of everybody. He could take care of all the Jewish poor. No question about it. Big bank, the big boss. No question. But people are going to struggle for whatever reason so other people can help them. And if they didn't help them, they lose a tremendous portion over here, the world to come. It gives them that ability to claim a portion of the world to come. Otherwise, who are rich people going to help? They're going to help anybody. They're just going to build fancy homes, and do all kinds of things. It's not going to help them spiritually. So we have to know and use the money in a proper way. And if you're given this gift and it's not used properly, then what can happen? God can definitely take it away. We don't want that. Right? We're not interested. We would rather be able to hold on to it, etc., give it to our kids and our grandkids and all that. But you have to know how to use it. I remember a friend of mine once said, I told him I had this learning center, in Beit Shemesh, and, I was funding it. Says, wow. He funded it for, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it was. Says, wow, when you had money, you knew how to use it. Well, I said, well, what else am I going to use it for? Well, I want to, buy a whole bunch of homes, this, that. Because most people will never do what I did. Right? Meaning that they had money to live on, and they were making interest. So instead of doing business or other things, I sat and learned. And I helped others. Boy, did I get hammered for that. No respect for that. Oh, you're just because you have money. Well, that could be part of the test. When you didn't have money, did I also sit and learn a good part of the time? Also, maybe against the wishes of others, different thing. Work myself to the bone a couple years ago. Learned to the morning, gave my conversion classes. And at the end, went to work for a title company from 4 to midnight. Not an easy schedule. Okay, I did what I had to do. I did what I had to do over there. Right? But if I had it my way, I had enough money to be able to help others, sit and learn, do all kinds of things. I had a whole plan. And God said, no, not going to happen now. Right? But even so, you have to know how to use it in the right way. So now the Torah tells me, Exodus chapter 22, verse 21. The Torah says, and we'll see the connection in a second, the Torah says you shall not cause pain to any widow or orphan. Right? I would also say to a convert, right? There are different verses teach you not to cause pain to a convert because they have no family. They don't have family who's going to help them. So a widow and an orphan, right? They don't have a father. They don't have a husband. Who's going to defend them? Who's going to defend them? God himself. Now, if anyone starts off with a widow or an orphan, you're fighting God himself. So,
Wow.
It's a good thing we're recording 100th episode over here. I'm going to go on the line and say, you want to fight against God? I think you'd be a fool. The Gemara already talks about the destruction of the temple, right? Titus, right? Famous Roman Titus,
general, yeah.
Right? And, he's on a boat and the sea's like going to destroy him. So he opens up his big mouth and says, God, you're going to fight me on the sea, fight me on dry land. Idiot. He says, fight me on dry land. God said, okay. So he lets the sea come, get calm, puts him on dry land. What does he do? God sticks a flea up his nose. Flea goes up his nose, and it grows and grows and grows in his brain. The only time where he felt his brain was not being gnawed at is when there was a blacksmith was banging on rock or whatever, and that's when it stopped.
Yeah.
Now when we died, the Talmud says what happened. They opened up his head, and they found a bird. They found this huge bird with teeth like you can't imagine. Like you can't imagine. It's like, inside his head. So this idiot, absolute idiot, gets up and says, God, fight me on dry land. God says, okay, I'm going to fight you and destroy you with the smallest thing in my creation. I'm going to take a flea, a fly, whatever, and I'm going to destroy you with this flea. You think you're going to fight me on dry land? You think you're going to have any, that's what you're going to do? So this is just one example. Oh, then what did Titus do? Titus said, before he died, he doesn't want to get judged by God. At least he had some sort of fear of heaven. So he says, burn my body, spread the ashes over the 7 seas so God of Israel cannot judge me. Now, God can do anything, right? So what did God do? So the Talmud says, God brought his ashes together, put his ashes together, put them back together, and burned them every day. Every single day that happened. For eternity. That's his punishment. That's what the Talmud says is punishment. God's not gonna, have any power over here. I burned my body, had my body burnt, my ashes scattered over the 7 seas. God's not gonna touch me. Nah. He's not gonna get me. God says, yeah, think again. And he takes the ashes, puts them together as the person, and he burns them again. And he burns them again. For eternity. You want to fight with God? Right? You don't want to fight with God over here. So the Torah tells me, Exodus chapter 22, verse 21, don't cause pain to a widow or an orphan. Because if you do, God says, I'm going to fight their battle. Now, what does that have to do with anything? Come on, Rashi. Rashi says, what's the intention over here? We're talking about people cannot defend themselves. That are weak in general. They can't defend themselves. So, therefore, what? What do we say? God stands by them, fights their wars for them. So we see that no one should start up with orphans. Otherwise, God's going to start up with you. So you want to do the right thing. You bring peace to the world. God's going to be happy. You don't want to do the right thing. What's going to happen? There's punishment. There's reward and punishment. To the extent where you want to start up with widows and orphans, you're going to start up with God himself. Right? It's not something you want to do. Not something we're interested in doing. So we have to remember, after all this, that charity, that, giving money to help others, right, is not only an obligation. That's why for non-Jews also have an obligation to give charity, because it's something that makes sense, right? It's something that would make sense according to logic, that they should help others. So therefore, it's a tremendous principle. It's a tremendous thing, and therefore, if a person has, they have to help others. Now, even if they don't have a lot. I have a friend of mine who was told he didn't have any money, and he was told to give 20%, right? I think I mentioned this before, right? 20%. So his wife laughed. I said, that's great. We don't have anything. So 20% of nothing is zero, right? Higher mathematics. So, but he told me, he said, this person's a scribe. So he writes mezuzahs, he writes tefillin, right? The parchment you put in to tefillin. And he said, I've never had anything in my possession that lasts. In other words, when I write, it goes. In other words, he's never left with stuff in stock. His stuff is never not sold. So he says, ever since he started giving 20%, now, not everyone's going to tell a person you should give 20%. Okay, right? But, ever since he gave 20%, he never lacked. He's never had an issue. You don't give up giving up. This is what someone said to me, but if I give, and what happens if, you give a lot or whatever, and then it's taken away and you can't give. So what about all that charity you gave before? Isn't charity a guarantee? You give a lot of money to charity, help other people, isn't that a guarantee? Right? Well, not going to give you necessarily long life, protect you from all kinds of things. Right? So that could be very true. Except there are also other things going on. It could be a person did something, maybe they're liable for a death penalty. So instead of being liable for a death penalty, God says, you know what? Instead, I'm going to take away their money. Really, I should have killed them. But that would have been too much for the family, for others that needed them or whatever. So therefore, we're not going to take their life. I'm not going to take away their money. I'm not going to make life hard for them. Now, that could happen. There are many factors going on which we do not understand at all. So somebody asked my wife this question. So do you have any regrets or any remorse that you helped all these people? Now, if a Jew says, you should never say this, but if a Jew would say, all the people I helped, all the mitzvahs that they did, weren't worth anything in their eyes, they lose everything. They lose all the merit. In other words, you're spitting in God's face. He gave you a bounty. He gave you a tremendous amount. He gave you the ability to help others, and you say it wasn't worth it, it all wasn't worth it, you lose it. You lose all that merit. So that's not something you want to do. Okay, there's a test having money. There's a test not having money. Right? There's a test both ways. And we mentioned before, anyone who's ever won the lottery, the statistics are exponential. That everyone who's won the lottery, their life was a misery. Total misery. On $40 million, $20 million, whatever. They won a huge amount of money, destroyed them. Destroyed families, all kinds of things. Right? So someone says, I'd like to be in that position. But I'm saying the statistics are very, very strong. Very, very strong, showing that you have that kind of money, it never ends up. It never ends good. So the more charity you help others, right? The more peace is that God is saying you're doing the right thing. You're bringing peace to the world because you're helping others. You're not just using it for yourself. You're not just building, fancy homes, and have fancy cars and, doing all these things and doing everything for yourself. You're helping others. When you help others, right, that's the question. When you help others, are you really helping them more, or are you helping yourself more? Now, obviously, that one that gives is the one that receives. You'll say, he's getting more benefit here. He's absolutely giving more benefit. But the reality is the one who gives and the one who helps, so he's getting more benefit because he's giving no matter what he has. He's giving and he understands it's really only a loan. Even if he understands it's only a loan, then he understands what the purpose of money is. But there are people who don't get that message. There are people who think, work for it. Work harder. Oh, you should, my case, people would say, oh, you had money, you should have done this, right? Monday morning quarterback. You should have done this, you should have done that, you should have done the other thing, right? So I had somebody, or I know somebody, took that money and invested it in a non-kosher restaurant. And it was doing very well. They got advice, opened up another franchise. And what happened? The other franchise wasn't doing so well, took down the other store, lost everything. Person till this day, still bitter. Still bitter, family never came, never empathized, nothing. Got bad advice. Or what they thought was good advice, end up being bad advice. Now, obviously, God took the money away. They didn't want him to have it. They wanted him to use it in that way. Whatever the case is. Right? Whatever the case is. But the point is, it wasn't used for the right thing. Totally wasn't used for the right thing. So therefore, if you don't use it for the right thing, God can take it away. Or, God can give you much more of it so that you get all your reward because you have to get rewards for mitzvahs you do. Even if God's going to cut you off in the next world for any number of transgressions the person may do, he has to give you whatever you did in this world. Meaning he has to give you the mitzvah, the reward of the mitzvah in this world. So a person could have tremendous wealth, fame, power, all these different things. Could have all these great things, but in the next world, he ain't getting nothing. When he dies, he'll die like a dog. Poof. Nothing happened. Now, why does God do that? Because it wouldn't be fair if the person, going to say, come on, I deserve reward. I did help Granny once cross the street. I once gave a charitable donation. So why not? Why should I get rewarded? God says, you're right. It wouldn't be fair the way I run the world. So what does God do? He'll give you the rewards. And he'll give you the reward in this world. In the next world, you don't get anything. So it could be some people getting tons of money. Huge amounts of money, whatever it is. Even if they don't help anybody and do anything. They just waste it and this and that. So what happens? God's giving it to them for whatever good mitzvah they've done in this world. They get nothing later.
Wow.
Right? That's a consequence. That's a major consequence. So a person's going to say, come on, he's got this money and he's got this fame and power and all this. Very good. But it's a delusion. Right? That's all it is. Right? In other words, sorry, not delusion, it's an illusion. It doesn't mean anything because what it looks like is not what it really is. You're going to say, but he's got this, so what? What do I care? Right? Someone tell me, I've been married to a non-Jew, for 35 years, nothing bad has happened. Nothing really bad has happened, even though, they were in a biking accident, got thrown from a bike and, broke 6 ribs and, broke their shoulder. Okay, not going to say nothing's ever happened, right? But say, I haven't been struck down. Nothing bad has happened to me. Nothing seemingly is going to happen. So the answer was, yeah, maybe not now. Maybe not now. We're going to see. Right? We're going to see in the next world what's going to be. They're like, oh, I'm not worried about the next world. Whatever. So that person could very well be getting their reward in this world. And in the next world, they're in big trouble if they get anything.
Wow.
So just because someone may have it easy and nothing, quote unquote, bad has happened, and their kids are happy, they have a relationship, blah, 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 everything's great, that doesn't mean anything. Why doesn't it mean anything? Because later on, they could be toast. Because God may reward them for any mitzvah they've done. Very good. So, if God rewards them now, what does that mean later? It means they get nothing later. So now someone could say, how do I know? How does a person know that, they're not getting that now? So we have a lot to worry about. I mean, if a person has money and maybe a lot of money or, etc. This is where humility comes in, which is, again, is really a whole nother topic, which I don't want to be crucified over here, not finishing the Mishnah here, right? So I'm just going to end with that part because, charity is a whole topic. It's a really big topic. I think the last number of weeks, except for last week, we sort of really hammered this point, and that, the main idea is the person has to realize the money is not from you, and it's not from your effort and all that. It's because God's giving it to you, and if He gives you a lot, and He blesses it in that way, just realize how thankful a person has to be, right? And realize that, it doesn't start with you. If God wants you to have it, you'll have it. Even if you invent the pet rock. If He wants you to be successful, you will be. If not, you won't be. But if you have to learn how to give. Right? And even if you don't have a lot, you have to learn to put your hand in your pocket and help others. Right? Even for non-Jews. Again, does that mean non-Jews have to give 10%? No. Doesn't mean they have to give 10%. They want to give 10%, great. They want to give 20%, right? Even better. Yeah, so even better. Right, but they have to learn how to give. If they don't learn how to give, and a Jew is no different. If they don't know how to give, they're an ingrate. Because here you've been given quite a bit, or you've been given enough, whatever the case is. So if that's true, you got to learn to help others. So there's a question. We'll take a question here before we get to the next part of the Mishnah, right? And that is the people are doing good but get nothing but suffering. They are presumably accumulating a lot of reward in Olam Haba. Yeah. What suffering does, suffering is the whole topic in of itself, but suffering, what does suffering do? Suffering cleanses a person. We don't want to suffer. Nobody's interested in going through, personal suffering in this world. The reality is, suffering is payback for things we've done wrong. In other words, the person transgressed in this world. So God wants them to have it easier in the next world. So He makes their life in this world very hard. Right? Maybe different times, different things, whatever it is. Right? If again, it depends on a lot of factors. It's going to depend on the source of their soul. What they're doing. Are they living up to their expectations? Or not? Right? But, if they're doing the best they can, even in God's eyes, right? They're doing the best they can. Then why are they going to suffer? They'll suffer because God wants them to be squeaky clean in the next world. But 100% suffering is a cleansing process. That there's no question. That is a cleansing process. So the suffering they get now is going to wipe away a lot of the terrible things they've done in this world in order to have a greater portion of the world to come. Right? That's really what it means. That's again, it's going to depend on the transgression. It's going to depend on a lot of factors. But the reality is that, the question was, so I'll just fill you in here. The question was, the people are doing good, but get nothing but suffering, and they're accumulating a lot of reward in the next world. Right now, converts have it very hard, potential converts. I don't think Noahides have it that much easier, in many things. But let's understand. I mentioned this before, in the beginning of chapter 16 of the book of Leviticus, the Korban Aaron, the Or Chaim HaKadosh, 100 years ago, brings down the Korban Aaron. The Korban Aaron says that if you're close to the king and you mess up, the punishment's much more severe.
Right.
In other words, if you're the water boy,
that makes clear sense to me. Yeah.
You're the water carrier. Nobody cares. You're the mailman. Unless you have an important letter to bring to the king and it gets destroyed, okay. But if you're a ball boy or a water carrier, it doesn't mean anything. You're all men on the totem pole, right? No pun intended. So the king's not going to care. But if you're close to the king, it's a whole different world. And anyone who's been in the process of repentance, whether it's a Jew or a non-Jew, I don't know too many people had it easy. I don't know anybody who's had a cakewalk.
Well, Rabbi, on the same note, can you be giving in vain somewhere, like a miss, but it just money pouring out? Like I remember a few years, didn't matter. I mean, there was so many people trying to stick their hands in my pocket, I couldn't keep them away, But it got frustrating, and maybe I was had to learn to give with the right heart attitude. But some people just drain you dry.
No, you're right. So, but a person, first of all, you have to give to the right people. I had this on Friday. Someone, whatever, I was at a bank. I was coming out, and someone said, someone else, I had no idea who they were, and they asked, do you have money for Shabbos? Can you give me some money for Shabbos? So I had some money in my pocket. So, I gave a certain amount. He said, well, I see you have 100 there. Can you give me 100? Which I thought was a little bit chutzpahdik. Yeah, to say. But so I thought to myself, well, either this person's just an absolute liar. He says, I need to go shopping, whatever. He's dressed, to the hilt as an Orthodox Jew. Right? So I thought to myself, well, someone was asking for money for food, which, let's say that's true. Pretty embarrassing thing to do. Definitely a pretty embarrassing thing to do. So I thought to myself that, okay, I gave him a certain amount. And he's asking for more. I said, I just made a wedding. It wasn't easy to make a wedding. So I thought, if this person's legit, and he really needs, you know what? I'm going to give anyway. I'm going to give even if he's a fraud. Why? What's the rationale? Now, if he's a fraud, right? If he's a fraud, so he gets the transgression. He's going to get the transgression. Maybe I should check them out more. I'm not saying I gave a significant amount, right? But I'm saying that I thought to myself that, someone is asking like that. I mean, it is being a little bit brazen. Definitely a little bit brazen. I don't think there's any question about that. The question is, if the guy wasn't legit and I gave him a certain amount, which was, if I gave him a significant amount, let's say, that maybe I don't get any mitzvah over here. Why? Because he's a fraud, right? He's a total fraud. On the other hand, someone's asking for food and that's what they're really asking for. Even if they're brazen, people do things, when they're desperate. So I said to myself, even if I don't get credit for this, I'm gonna overcome my evil inclination. I'm just gonna give. I just made a wedding. I could use the money in my pocket. Okay, right? But here's something. It reminded me of the story. Now that I think about it, the story of Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva, married Rachel. Her father was Kalba Savua, very, very wealthy man, and he was very upset. She married someone who was an Amarit, who was ignorant. He was an ignoramus at this point, right? So that being said, they were very poor. He cut them off. So they slept on straw beds. Hard to imagine sleeping on straw, but okay. Comes on Elijah the prophet. Elijah the prophet tells us was disguised as a poor person. And he asked Rabbi Akiva, do you have any straw to lend me, to give me? Rabbi Akiva was dancing. He's like, look, he doesn't even have straw. And at least we have straw. We're poor. We're dirt poor, but at least we have straw. There are different levels. Right? But, also, you're not going to give a significant amount if you don't know who the person is. Right? In general. So I thought, okay, you know what? I was going to give anyway. And I did. Now, I gave with a pure heart. I was a little bit taken aback. No question. but I gave with a pure heart. And I said that, in this case, if I didn't fulfill my obligation, okay, right? But my assumption was the person really needed it. It was a little more brazen. Okay, right? So I wanted to make sure I didn't have any animosity in my heart. Because if you had any animosity giving, like you just said, you lose the mitzvah, according to the Rambam. You lose the mitzvah. In other words, if you give with a sour face, you lose. You lose the mitzvah. So I can tell you, I had very hard days. When I had money, people left and right, insults, whatever, all kinds of things. It's like, you're obligated to help me. And there were brazen people. But, I didn't understand until I was on the other side of the coin that people do things when, bad things or say terrible things or whatever when they're under a tremendous amount of stress. So when I look back and people were dogmatic, brazen, in different ways, I can relate to that. Why? Because if a person's in dire straits and they don't know which way to turn, and they know you have the ability to help people, why aren't you willing to help and give more? Right? Usually, I had someone tell me this. And they said, you only give me this. You have a lot more to give. I mean, whatever. It was pretty brazen. But at the same time, there are people that are in dire straits. They know you have the ability to help. And you don't give them what they think they need or what they deserve. So they get angry. But where does the anger come from?
I see that in my job all the time.
But where does the anger come from? The anger is because they don't know what to do. Because they're desperate. When you're desperate, you say things, you do things you should never do. Now, I can now say, and I can speak about this for days, right? But I can now say that I understand that clear as day. Because I've been on that side. And I know what it feels like to be totally down and not knowing which way to turn.
Yeah.
And then, you go to someone for help and they say no. I remember once I went to to borrow money, and you have to have two people sign. You have the two people sign as I don't know what you call it in English, guarantors. In other words, if you don't pay it back,
it falls on the other.
These two people, then they'll split it or they'll pay it back or whatever. Now, some people will make you do that, but again, if it's a proper place where they lend a lot of money, to a lot of different people, they want guarantors. So I remember I asked someone I know, it's not like someone I don't know, someone I know. And, I asked them if they would sign. I don't, no. I absolutely, I'm not going to do it. I won't do it. Now, some people are reluctant to sign. I do understand. Because they want to make sure you're going to pay it back. How do they know you're going to pay it back? Right?
How do they
have
know
to
you're
know
going to
who
be
you can
able
ask,
to?
who you can, who you can trust, different things. Money, not an easy thing. I get it. Okay. But there's someone, there's not like someone I've not known for years. So I was like, taken aback. And I was like, you know what I've been through? You have any, like, I need this money. Like, I need help over here. Just like, I'd love to help. I can't do it, whatever. And that was it. That was like the end of the conversation. Now, I was taken aback. Because, okay, now to find, I did find someone else to sign. Well, there wasn't an issue. Right? It wasn't an issue. But the person didn't want to sign. Now, if you're desperate and and you're in that situation, what could that do? That can make you say things against them. That can get you angry and say, what, this person's not going to help me? You understand what I've been through? Over the last number of years. Well, it doesn't matter. All these things come up in your mind. But in the end, it's a different thing. Right? In the end's a different thing. Just back to this other question, someone asked about suffering, etc. So the person says that suffering is measured by the sins, right? Whatever a person's done, God is gonna measure that, right? The mitzvah that you've done, you're gonna get reward for. right? That's no question. That's a different issue. We're not talking about the reward for the mitzvahs you've done. The suffering is coming at the hands of the transgression that you've done. Why you did it, where you were holding in the world, how it affects people around you. God can say, "Why you did such terrible things, you deserve to die." Right? But why doesn't God take you at that time? Because people around you need you, right? You need your family needs you. The Untitled World Center needs you, right? Converts need you. Like so Rabbi Lopian said, you want to guarantee having a longer life, work for the masses. Help out different organizations, different things. When you do that, even if you deserve the death penalty, God forbids, God can have mercy and say, no, but you're helping this, you're helping that, you're helping the other thing. So, God's going to keep you around longer, right? So to speak, right? So therefore, the suffering is going to be given to what you've done wrong, depending on what level you did it. And the measure of the mitzvah also, same thing. You're going to get reward for the mitzvah that you did according to the way you did it. According to the source of your soul, how you did it. The mitzvah doesn't go away. That reward doesn't go away. Doesn't mean a person's not going to suffer. That what could happen, God forbid, is that a person can do things that the mitzvahs that they've done don't help over here. They don't shield. What happens is the person can be so bad, whatever mitzvahs they've done, God's going to reward them for it in this world. If they're that bad and just knock them out in the next one. But say, what about someone, the claim was, people are doing good, but they get nothing but suffering. Now, I should have said at the outset, that's not necessarily a true statement. Because if someone's doing good things, not everything is bad. You have a roof over your head.
Yeah, they get the opportunity, sure.
You have a roof over your head. That's not bad.
You got it.
You're alive, breathing. You have food. You're not starving. You're relatively healthy. I can think of 100 things to prove that it's not bad. Right? You don't get nothing but suffering. That's not true.
It can appear that way to us, though, when we're in it.
No, that's, I can tell you 17 years of suffering, and going through what I went through. I'm not going to say I didn't have any good days. I also had good days, right? I was alive, no health issues, relatively speaking. Yeah. Still should be healthy. I got hit in the pocket, hard. A lot of embarrassment, a lot of other things. Didn't mean I didn't have good things. And there were other, when it comes to money, it was like what do you call it? It spiraled. Because, when you're having difficulty with money, other things go with it as well. And one of them, what it can put a tremendous strain on a marriage. Tremendous strain on a marriage.
For sure.
Is money issues. Now, there were plenty of other things to be thankful for. There's no question. Didn't mean you didn't suffer. But there are a lot of other good things. Problem is, again, we look at the cup as half empty. Right? So so let's just knock this out. There is no such thing as, you're suffering, there's nothing good. That can't be true. It can't be true. Person's working, they're making money. I say, I'm not making enough.
They're still breathing, right?
You're still breathing. You're eating. You might not be eating so fancy. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Right? But million things to be thankful for. I said 100. I'm going to say 1,000,000. Million things to be thankful for. Can't be it's all bad. But the problem is, you're right. Because Dan the man said, when you're down, you don't see the good. And if you're drowning in quicksand and you're being beaten down in life, it's very hard to see good. Very, very hard to see good. So there's a mentality. The mentality is that even when it looks so dark, there is a light at the end of the tunnel at some point. But even if you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, it's one thing another, and it just spirals out of control. That doesn't mean it's all bad. It just That aspect is bad. Or let's say better, that aspect is hard. But the reality is that what we see as bad is not really bad. We just think for us it's bad. And for us it's hard. But we get beaten down in life. So when you get beaten down in life, it's very hard to see anything else. That's the reality. Very, very hard to see anything else.
Rabbi, isn't there a verse in Tanakh that talks about being snatched in a net?
That could be. But even if you're snatched in a net and you feel like there's no way out, the Gemara says in Tractate Brachot, it says that even if there's a sword against your neck, God can still have mercy. Now, it could be it's your time to die and you're going to die. Okay. Right? But even if that last split second, there are many, many cases throughout history. Person was supposed to die and this and that, and they didn't. The person had mercy, whatever. Different things, however they survive. Right? So, even if you're trapped in a net, and it seems like a net you can't get out of. I was trapped in hundreds. Hundreds. Feels like hundreds. Right? But there are many things I didn't see a way out of. I didn't see any way out, according to nature. According to nature. Now, I mentioned someone earlier, asked me, how the wedding went, this and that. And I told people, listen, I'm going to get through the wedding. I might crawl through it. But I'm going to get there. I'm definitely going to get there. You
were determined,
it might not
for
look
sure.
pretty. And there were so many things that were miraculous. Some things that, were a little less pretty. But it worked itself out. The process of working itself out. So, but I got through it. And I already saw I know what's going to be difficult here. And I already knew previously that, it's going to be taken care of. And most of it's going to be taken care of. And it was. In many ways, taken care of. So, did I come out smelling like a rose through the whole process? No. But in the end, I'm just going to have a big laugh. Eventually, when all things being equal, I'm going to be in the positive after this wedding, sometime in the future. Now, that doesn't necessarily always happen unless you have money set aside, right? If you're like most people living day to day, week to week, and not always put money aside. But we're not even getting into that. So even with that, and there was a lot of pressure. And there was, whatever, just, dealing with my daughter and whatever, a lot of things, and buy this and buy that and other things and money coming in and where's it coming from? All kinds of things going on all at once. It's what a wedding is. It's all at once. It's not like it's over a short amount of time. It's like bam, 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 bam. Right? So what happened? So most things were taken care of. Most things I didn't worry about. The one thing that I worry about, I took care of in different ways. And that's it. So, I limped sort of, more than limped, probably skipped. Hopscotched, right, to the finish line, right, got there, and it was an unbelievable wedding. I didn't have anything to worry about. Everything was taken care of. I get some other things on my head, fine, but, it's a whole different thing. So you're going to say, what about my head? What about all the difficulty? You're right. You're right. But in the end, somehow it works itself out in a miraculous way. Now, you're going to say, what about people who lose their homes? What about people, during COVID, lost their business? Or if they didn't lose their business in the riots of the summer, they lost it. Or other things. And now everything they built up 20, 30 years, gone. What's the answer? What's the very, very simple answer? God says, everything you built up, I'm taking away for whatever reason. And God took it away. Use COVID as an excuse. He took it away. Because you didn't deserve it. You didn't thank him enough. You didn't, whatever. Whatever it is. like someone said, you had all these years of plenty. True? Did I sit there and curse God? God forbid, afterwards? Oh, I was in a tough situation. Tough situation. No question. But you curse God at that point, you lose everything. We mentioned that before. So it's hard. No one's going to say it's not easy. Right? But did I die? Did I pray every day? Yes. At least when I wasn't sick. Right? Did I say, as a Shem B'Simcha, I'm going to serve God with great joy? I say it every day. Whenever I'm supposed to say it, yeah. You say, but how could you say that when it's in the darkest of days? Again, I'm not going to say it was easy. I'm not going to say there weren't days where, it was just depressing. No question. But in the bigger scheme of things, if you would tell me things never turned and they were never good, it's one thing. But that wasn't the case. You have to be able to see the good. And it's not easy to see the good when you're getting destroyed. And in my case, I got annihilated. On a lot of different levels. It was just one thing after another. Bam, 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 bam. And I got hammered on all sides. Not one drop of empathy, not one. So you're going to say, so where did you get the strength from? Strength from Avram Avinu. Because Avram Avinu went through 10 times worse things than we did. And he gave us the ability to overcome. That's what he put in the world. Now, how can I speak so strongly about it? Because I went through it. If I didn't go through it, so I can't empathize as much. But being through it and seeing different things, as I told people, I ended up where I live today. Until my kids get married, the two families that live one building away from another, one just moved. All of that, zero. And you get along with the families are born, it's unbelievable. You got to say, but look what you went through before. So we'd say, Makesh, so what? This is what you went through, but you know what? God organized it this way, that way, the other way. And he put all these things together for you to be right here. For you to be right here, look at face and, and to see the beauty. See the beauty. I'm telling you, by my daughter's wedding, it was unbelievable. Just the atmosphere was electric. It was absolutely electric.
Glad your joy's full.
But a lot of things happened before that. I could complain left and right. I told people, listen, I could curse certain things, and I'd have every right to do it. Because if it was a secular Jew, they'd be cursing left and right. This isn't fair. That's not fair. This, that. But we have a God who runs the world. God is in charge. So if God is in charge, okay, because he taketh away. He's got the right to do that. But you got to say, I'm going to live. 100% you got to live. So how do you live with that joy when you're being tossed around? Isn't that the question? And this question comes up all the time. How do you do with this smile on your face? It's not easy. It's something that, you wake up in the morning, it's not just going through the motions. You can't just go through the motions. Speak about that tomorrow, hopefully. But you can't just go through the motions. You got to live it. Right? And everyone's got the most amount of faith in God when they got nice, when everything's going good. And they got a nice fat bank account. Everything's great. Oh, you got a little bit of a hiccup, a little bit of difficulty. Fix it. I want it fixed. Right now. Instantaneous. It doesn't work that way. That's not what life is. Shallow way of looking at the world. Right? But the reality is we're given things and tests for what reason? To build us. To make us who we are. We don't grow without tests. That's what we say every day. Don't bring me to tests. But if we're not tested, we don't grow. So I can say, isn't it true? Isn't it true? I would have rather not been tested with this. Yeah. I didn't sign up for this. But God says it's what you need. I'm going to bring out a character trait you didn't even get. And how am I going to get it? I'm going to take a hypodermic needle and I'm going to squeeze it. And I'm going to put you on your knees and over again. You're going to get over the head. You're going to get embarrassed and all that. But I'm going to bring this out so you can speak for the world, the Noahide World Center, and give this over to people's strength. But you can say, didn't you have bad days? Yeah, I did. 100%. It was a trauma. It was a trauma. There's no question. And the fact I'm still standing today, and I moved my kids around the world, they came back intact, more or less. Coming back to it is nothing short of miraculous. Nothing short of miraculous. And we don't know the rhyme or reason why things happen. Because there could be random events. We don't understand. Look at the book of Esther. Every event seems like a random event. But without each event, you wouldn't have the downfall of Haman. You wouldn't have his downfall. Each event is crucial. Now, if we connect the dots to certain things, we might see a pattern. Maybe. And even if we don't see a pattern, doesn't matter. God knows what he's doing. God runs the world. He's the one in charge. We do nothing. You want to tell me all the different events? Let's say over the last 10 years. Equal to what happened, and, my kids getting married and different things and all kinds of things. We don't understand. We don't understand at all. But for whatever reason, in my own life, God puts me in a certain place. He's like, I'm going to put you in Beitar Elite. Okay? Check it out for a year and see. Okay, I've been here now 13 years. The summer's starting 14 years. Okay. Now, with everything I've gone through, why'd I end up here? I don't know. But this is where I ended up.
You're only like an hour bus ride, though, to Jerusalem, right?
Yeah, it's close. Right, it's not far. But I'm saying just being in this location, being connected to different people. Two of my kids married, 2 people in the same street. With everything I've been through, those odds are very small, if not zero. You can't say that's chance. It's like a cousin of my wife would say, 39 Scud missiles not hitting one thing in Israel, the Gulf War. I can figure that out. It's like 1 in 10 billion. I would bet all the money you and I don't have and say that will never happen. Never, ever happen. Anything? Not a building, not a car, not a lamppost, nothing. What do you got? The stupidest Arabs in the world shooting these accurate missiles from 100 kilometers away? They didn't hit anything. The odds of that are zero. Because what do we see? Right before that, there was a suicide bomber in Beirut, killed 290 U.S. servicemen. One shot. One shot. You're going to tell me a missile of that kind of capability, it's nothing? Empty areas? The odds are zero. That's right, but what's the person saying? I can still see it. It can still happen. Why? Because you want to believe. Because you believe in God, now I have obligations. That's a different thing. That's a different thing. But if you want to be able to see it, God will open your eyes. 2 people can see the same thing. One person sees one thing, person sees something else. Because you see what you want to see. It's selective seeing. I get it. Someone say, well, you got very lucky. I hate that word. There's no such thing. Work hard to give your kids values. Does that mean they go in the right path? No. Doesn't mean they go in the right path. But what are the odds? The odds are 80%. I think that's a statistic today. 80% of religious Jews that are going to educate their children in the Jewish religion properly, they're going to have success. 80% of the time. In a secular Jewish household. Into marriage, 70%. 60, 70, sometimes 80%. That means you're only successful, if that, for your kids 20% of the time. Now, most people know I like statistics. You can manipulate statistics, but it doesn't matter. The point is, I'll take 75, 80% success rate over 20% any day of the week. Now, maybe those odds are a little bit less. Doesn't matter. The mass majority of the time, religious Jews are bringing up their kids, giving them what they need for the next generation, etc. Very high success rates. I don't care if the numbers are going down. It doesn't matter. Very, very high success rate. In marriage as well. So I'll take those odds. It's not just a random thing. Right? That's what the English would say. Rubbish. I don't believe in that. Oh, you got lucky. We educate our kids in a certain way. Give them certain values. Now, they can take the values or not take the values. They have that choice. But if you see them going in the majority going in the right direction, now you can't say that's luck. But the problem is, in the secular world, they'll say they're brainwashed, they're this, they're that, and, there's no rhyme or reason. They take Judaism right out of it. But obviously you can't do that. Because then, you're saying what we do doesn't matter. It's all just based on luck. Okay. Right? If you would educate your child, you want to educate them in Judaism when they're older. When they're teenagers, it's over. They're not going to listen. They didn't start keeping things. They didn't learn about it. They're already part of the secular world. They don't want to have anything to do with it. That's why you got to start from a very young age. Don't start from a young age. Very hard. I know people convert with families, and they had older kids. Some of the kids were interested, other kids weren't. Why? Because they weren't brought up with it. It's very hard to change, at that age. And you can't expect them to. No one should ever expect them to. If they do and they come along, very good. If they don't, right, doesn't necessarily mean a person can't convert. Right? But you gotta you gotta start from a very young age. If you don't start from a young age, it's gonna be very, very hard. But in the secular world, you don't have a chance. In the secular Jewish world. It's never gonna happen. Right? Why is it never going to happen? Because they're not educated in it. They don't want to keep things. They want to do whatever they want to do. So give them a smattering of Jewish education. So what are the odds they're going to pass that down to the next generation? Even if they do, the generation after that, zero. Very little. And then, all their families, they lose their Jewishness. Jewishness goes out the window. That's what happens. Right? That's really the bottom line. But again, we're never going to get credit for that. They're never going to say, oh, it's the way you raised them. It's the values that they can't say that. Why can't they say that? Because if they do say that, then they're saying what I'm doing is wrong. Or I live my life is wrong. Right? They can't say that. So I have to say you got lucky. Right? That's what I have to say. You absolutely got lucky. So yeah, kids are not silly putty. You just don't put them in the system. Everyone comes out the same. That's not the case. But again, it takes a tremendous effort. Tremendous effort, but you have to have values. If you don't have real Jewish values, how are you going to give them to your kids? You're not going to give them anything. You give them the values you think are good values. Okay? Is that a guarantee? It's not a guarantee for anything. Because your kid will say, like I told a friend of mine who was becoming a Reconstructionist rabbi, I said, listen, you put on tefillin every day. You put on phylacteries every day. You want your son, when he's bar mitzvah, and afterwards to put on tefillin. He's going to say, Dad, come on. You like chocolate, I like vanilla. Or I like strawberry. Or I like peppermint stick or whatever. So you like that, I like this. What are you going to convince him with? What are you going to give that's going to convince him if you don't really live it? You don't have anything to give them. They're going to say, I'd rather be doing this. I'd rather be doing that. Okay. You can rather be doing a lot of things. That's no guarantee whatsoever you're going to pass it down. And then some people say, who's to say you have to pass it down? Right? Who says that's the obligation? Well, the Torah tells me. It's supposed to be forever. That's a lot harder. Dealing with things, someone here points out, very true, it's much harder dealing with them. If they haven't been doing anything before, or very little. But where do values come from? That's, again, get sidetracked here, but that's a whole other discussion. Where values come from. Parents afraid to give certain values to their kids. Well, they should be open-minded. So their brains fall on the floor. Should be open-minded, let them think for themselves. Shouldn't tell them certain things. They'll find out about it anyway. We're not giving them Jewish values. Because the parents themselves don't have Jewish values. You tell me. Everyone has a spark inside them. Every Jew, that's true. Depends what you use it for. There are people who can be totally misguided, just use it for all kinds of things. And they're not going to use it in the right way. So the kids are going to come out a certain way. Or not a certain way. Someone grows up, whatever, Reform, Conservative, whatever it is. They get married and say, no, I don't want God mentioned in my service. Why should I have God mentioned in my service? So someone will say, how can it be? Then they learn about the holidays. Then they learn about creation. Then they learn about other Jewish concepts. No, it's giving lip service. Because the parents themselves don't believe it. The teachers themselves don't believe it. So they're going to give a very watered version. Right? It's going to be very watered down. So how can we expect someone's going to get married and say, I'm going to mention God? What am I going to mention God for? But you're Jewish. So what? I want to mention God. Someone told me this. Like, they were kind of shocked. They said, but they're brought up and this and that. I didn't really answer. There wasn't really much to say. Because the reality is, they were brought up. Do what you want, believe what you want. Real Jewish values, come on. They weren't given real Jewish values. So if you're not given real Jewish values as a youngster, maybe you come to it later. But if you don't come to it later, and you don't come to it, you got to say, so what are you gone for? I don't want to mention God. That makes sense. They were shocked I said this. But it makes sense. Makes total sense. Because if they're not brought up that way, why are they going to mention God in the first place? I'm not saying that anything horrific happened to them. No major trauma necessarily, in different ways. Living their life, however they live it. But why would they not mention God? Why should they? I would say, is it shocking to me? Not at all. Oh, they'll say, I do believe in God. Not the way you do. But why would I need to mention it? Is it shocking that they wouldn't do it? No. To me, it's perfectly obvious. But other people may say it's shocking. Because they had a certain Jewish education. And Coffman's laws, you can take that Jewish education and flush it. Not worth anything. They don't know anything. They don't know anything about Judaism. Or they claim to know whatever and make it up as they go along. It's all make-believe. Who cares? They're going to think when they get married, they're going to thank God. They're going to mention God's name. Why? It's not, it's sad. I agree. 100%. I agree. It's sad. But guess what? It's a reality. And that's what you're brought up on. And you're given a watered down version of what the truth is. What do you expect? I would have expected more. How can you expect more? You didn't give him anything. You thought you're doing the best you can. I can't even tell you how many times I've heard that. I'm digressing here, but I think it's an important point. Right? We did the best we could. I had somebody who's 3 kids, quote unquote, the most religious family in my parents' synagogue. Right? One had 3 kids with a non-Jew. One's married to a non-Jew, one's not married. Closest one to Judaism's not married. So I can say, oh, they're the epitome. Look at them. Look what happened to them. I told them. when I was becoming religious, get out of Dodge. You got to move. If you want your kids to do anything religious, you have to move to a proper community. And they have to learn properly. Okay, they didn't listen. Maybe I could have done more later, different things. Okay, right? I still feel a certain amount of pain, but there's not much I can do. Right? Well, that's the way it is. We did the best we could. I don't know. You have all non-Jewish grandkids. People make excuses. Now, if God says that's the best you could do, then he won't have claims. He'll have claims on the kids, maybe more claims on the parents, whatever. So if God's going to cut us some slack, fine. But if not, you could have done better. You just didn't want to. The evil inclination told you not, just stay where you are. Just be mediocre, as I've heard. I'm happy the way I am. Well, you happy the way your kids turned out? Jewishly? I'm not going to say that. Right? I told them to their face, I said, listen, either you look like me or you're just going to disappear. Right? You totally disappear. Yeah, there is a question here before I go further. Someone asked, can a convert or a Jew be a day trader of cryptocurrency to make a living according to the Torah? I don't know. If it's not illegal, then why not? Person wants to be a day trader in the stock market. If you're not to be a day trader, kind of risky, but if a person wanted to be a day trader, could they do it? They could do it. Person be a stockbroker, why not? It's not illegal. Doing cryptocurrency is not illegal. I think it's risky, but it's not illegal. So a person wanted to do that to make a living, and they could make a living doing that. Nothing wrong with it. Right? If there's nothing illegal, nothing going on behind the scenes that's forbidden, stealing from anyone, whatever, not misrepresenting, and all these things. If it's on the up and up, shouldn't be an issue. Right? That definitely shouldn't be an issue. So now Dan's going to be happy. Get to the next part of the Mishnah. Maybe we're actually going to finish the Mishnah. What's the last part of the Mishnah? Last part of the Mishnah is, because again, I could go on that topic forever, but we've spoken about it a lot. So let's go further. One who has gained a good reputation has gained it for his own benefit. One who has gained himself Torah knowledge, gained himself the life in the world to come. Now, someone has a good reputation. What does it mean for his benefit? Right? What does it mean over here? Come along, Rabbeinu Yonah of Gerond. Says famous Rabbeinu Yonah that when they acquired the good reputation, he asked the following question. Okay, they have a good reputation. Who doesn't want a good reputation? Right, speaking about a good reputation, I'll just mention 2 weeks ago on my show on Tanakh Talk, spoke about Ukraine and what's going on. And I said basically, Ukraine against Russia, they have so much Jewish blood on their hands that they deserve whatever's coming to either one of them. And the only problem is there are Jews in the middle. There are Jews stuck in the middle, that are suffering. So anyway, I went on and on, about that idea. And he said it was so controversial, he had to take it down. For the first time in 120 episodes that I guess it hit a raw nerve, but because I asked him, how come I don't see it up? I want to, put it on my page. And he said there's so many comments and whatever, people just went ballistic. He said they had to take it down. Now I've spoken about a lot more controversial things than I think that, of all things. But okay, so why do I mention that? Good reputation, good reputation, says Rabbeinu Yonah. Who did he acquire it for? What's his good reputation? Who did he acquire it for? What's the simple answer? He acquired it for himself. He didn't acquire it for anyone else. He acquired it for himself. Now, that's going to be a little bit different if, let's say, a person acquired something, let's say like property. Because when the person dies, what do you take with you when you go upstairs after 120 years? Nothing. I think in China or Japan, they bury people with like credit cards and cars, right? They're going to use it in the next world, whatever. But we believe you don't take anything with you. You only take your good deeds. You leave everything else behind. So you can't take it with you. The person thinks that they're living in this world, the ultimate fame, right? I'm going to live forever. Fame. It's all about this world. It's all about living in this world. What happens when you die? Nothing. You don't take meaning. You don't take anything with you. Nothing goes with you. You leave everything else behind. So, whatever we have today, whatever possessions, and we could have a lot. We could have homes, cars, different things. Where's it go? Where does it go? It goes to your descendants. That's where it goes. You don't take anything with you except the Torah they learned and the good deeds they've done. Because whatever a person does, as we are recording now, there are two angels, the Gemara says, follows a person, records whatever they do. And then they're going to play the recording when a person dies. Whatever they did. So you can't say, oh, I never did this. I never had my hand in the cookie jar. What do you mean? Let's go to the videotape. Let's go and see. Not true. So these deeds, good or bad, are being recorded. And the actions stand by a person forever. Or as we would say in Boston, forever. They stay with a person forever. For good or for bad. And only someone's acquired a good name. Right? How do they acquire a good name? What is the emphasis in this world? The emphasis on this in this world is about how much Torah you learned. Right? Certainly for men, we have an obligation to learn Torah. Right? We're not talking about women or, non-Jews have to know what they have to do for themselves. Right? But how do we evaluate somebody? How do we look at somebody in this world? We look at how much Torah they kept. And they learned. So if they've got acquired a good name to the Torah they've learned, their good deeds will be a praise for them when the person dies. In other words, all the good things they've done are going to be positive for them in the next world. Meaning, if the children go in the right direction because you taught them, you sent them to school, then you get the reward of their actions as well. If they made anyone religious, help them on their path, they get rewarded for that. Right, as many people in Kiruv will tell you, in Jewish outreach, you make someone religious, you get all the reward for that. All their mitzvahs you get reward for that. So, if your kids go in the, so now we're going to take the flip side, but if the kids go in the right path, because you taught them properly, or they went to school, whatever, so the reward of their actions goes to you as well. And if,
but
God
on the flip
forbid,
side, yeah.
If, God forbid, they go the wrong path, and it's their choice, or something happened, or whatever, parents is somewhat responsible. No free ride over here. No free lunch. You're responsible at a certain level. You can say, come on. You're not in charge. There are a lot of things you're not in charge of.
Yeah, influence has yeah.
We can be so careful, but something else can happen, and at the end of the day, something happens, and it just spirals. Now that being said, when that happens, you're gonna say it's out of my control. Totally not in my control. You're right. They're gonna have to pay for what they've done. That there's no question. But even so, a parent is liable to a certain extent. Because they should have been more on top of it. But you're going to say, come on, the power of the street, other things. Well, we can sort of control who they're friends with in different ways. Or we can try and do that. We have to be on top of them all the time. See where they're going, who they're hanging out with, different things. Because if not, once something happens, it could spiral. Right? Even the best of homes. I'm not saying where there are issues. I'm saying even the best of homes where there are no issues. Or very little issues. But, that child goes through difficulty, whatever it is. So, there's a flip side. And the flip side is they went in the wrong path. For any number of reasons. And we sort of alluded to that before. There are a lot of potential reasons why, which have nothing to do with the parents. A kid gets into something, it's hard to break out of. Right? There are all kinds of addictions that a person can get into. It's very hard to break out of. So if that's the case, you didn't tell them to do that. You didn't give them access to that. But they got access other ways or whatever in order to fulfill their need, whatever that need is. It destroyed them. So you say, but I didn't do that. I didn't have anything to do with that. So you're somewhat responsible. Even with that, you're somewhat responsible. So we got to do our best to help them go on the right path. Even non-Jews. Right? They should try and, explain to family, going and, try to go on the right path. We don't proselytize. True. That is true. But if a person had an opportunity, especially with their kids, they should try and have them go on the right path. Explain to them this, that. And if they choose not to, okay, it's their choice. Totally their choice. But if we educate them and we put them in the right direction and they stay in the right direction, so we get all the benefit. Even if we put them in the right direction and they go in the wrong direction, right? It's catch-22. Because you're gonna pay a price also. You're gonna pay a certain price. So the reality is, who are kids gonna learn the most from? Who are their idols should be? Their parents. Right? That's who their idols should be. Now, obviously, kids go to school, at least in religious circles, 3 hours. They're more in school than there are at home in general. So you tell me, well, it depends on the teacher, depends on their friends, depends on this. But the reality is the values really come from home. And if the kids see contradictions, and they see things that the parents do and they give lip service to it or whatever, they say, well, I'm going to do this. Like someone told me, growing up, grew up modern, let's say more modern, more Orthodox, father comes home from work, sits down reading the newspaper. You have to study. Do as I say, not as I do. Total contradiction. What does the kid see? Oh, you work because you have to make a living. Okay, that's fine. But you don't learn. So if you don't learn, why do I have to learn more? Right? Kids are very, very quick to pick up things. Parents, in general, have a hard time. I'm not saying they have to hide things. But parents themselves, they're the models. They're the role models. Can a parent get upset after a long day? They haven't slept that much. Different things. They say something they shouldn't have. Try to make up for it, but the kid already got damaged to a certain extent. It happens. We're not perfect. We're not perfect by any stretch. But the values they should get are from us and not from the street. When they have questions, it should come to us and not to others. Because others can lead people astray. So we are the role models. Even though, even though we're our own worst enemy. It's hard to be on call for so long.
Now, Rabbi, would you say that this is kind of a lesson learned through the diaspora?
It comes from the school of hard knocks.
Yes.
We're living in exiles. No, that's for sure. The fact that we don't have the Messiah. Messiah hasn't come. We're living in difficult times. Every generation has its own evil inclination. Right? The 1900s, what was the evil inclination? Socialism, communism, right? The boons, etc. Democracy. Right? Okay, there were wars. A lot of Jews got killed through the wars, pogroms, all kinds of things. But there are other things that totally destroyed Judaism as well. Right? The isms, communism, socialism, all these things. So today, our Jews today caught up, caught up in that? I don't think so. I don't think so. They say, well, a lot of them just don't believe in God, right? And they're atheists. They're atheists. So we still live in an Amalekite type of world because they brought to the idea that there is no supernatural. They brought up this idea of atheism, which destroyed Haman, as we mentioned before, destroyed by his own motto. So the generation today, the cream puff generation, as I would call it, the cream puff generation today is all about desire. That's all it is. It's all about the next thing, this, that, whatever. That's what it is. It's not about ideology. You're going to say LGBT and all these other things, transgender, who knows what, there are all these ideologies out there. Rubbish. It's all about desire. It's all about justifying what they do. That's all it is. And nothing more than that. Now, you're going to tell me there's a tremendous, tremendous thing going on where, they're trying to brainwash the masses in order to think about, a whole new world. Not talking about new world order, but a whole new world. The fact that boys on boys, girls on girls, and anything goes. That's the world we live in today. Totally steeped in immorality. So if that's the case, that's the fight of today. It's technology, world order, but a whole new world, immorality gone crazy. The fact that boys on who knows who's who, girls and who's who thing, and all these men breaking women. That's the world we live in. Athlete, in athletics, breaking all the records because they're men. Prancing around like women. So nobody knows who they are today. And obviously that's not the way it's supposed to be.
No.
The Torah tells us clear that a man's supposed to cling to his wife, not to another man. And in Leviticus chapter 18 states clear it's forbidden. Homosexuality is forbidden. So everything's been thrown on its head. Anything that's Torah true has been trampled on. Right? In university, it's all about what? It's all about
moral relativism.
Moral relativism, right? It's about what happens if you don't believe in God? You don't believe in what the Torah says. What are you left with? Evolution. So everyone and their mother believes in evolution, right? All throughout, academia. So you got that, all kinds of other things that go against the Torah that people are being taught there. So with that, you got the media, you got the leftist media, trying to brainwash society. That's what they do. That's what they're interested in. In changing the way people think. And the LGBT community has, tremendous amount of power today. Unbelievable amount of power today. But Torah says, that act is an abomination. And that should never be. God didn't stop it. He allows it. He didn't zap everyone who does it. And, someone once told me many years ago, by the AIDS epidemic, hey, that if you think people act this way and that's the end result and that's the punishment, you're wrong. I think you got a better explanation? Right? In the 80s, that's when it happened. This whole explosion. Right? Where to come? You say, oh, they used, it was with monkeys and they used non-clean needles and this and that. Well, guess what? People were acting in unprotected sex. That's what happened by men. And women could get it also. Fine. But I'm saying, you want to tell me it's not an end result? Seems like a pretty direct result to me. You're going to say that's not proven. But where did most people get it? You'll say drug abusers got it, right? Your line of work. Drug abusers got it, right? Through the, sharing needles and all that. Okay. That's true. But where'd the highest percentage get it from? It wasn't from drug use. Definitely wasn't from drug use. So, you know what they say, if the glove fits, wear it. Right? It makes perfect sense. that's the punishment. And it was a pretty bad punishment, considering that's what it does to your immune system and everything else. Imagine Magic Johnson. He still hasn't come out with it fully. He's still like a time bomb ticket. But, regardless of all that, we're living in a totally messed up world. So I always say if people can stay religious today in this messed up world, it's absolutely miraculous. I don't think there's any question. But, a person can only, keep their minds clean and their thoughts in the proper way, if they're steeped in Torah. You basically have to exclude the whole outside world. Doesn't, like a friend of mine would say, if there's a war, I'll find out about it. What, I'd sit there and watch the news 100 times, see what's going on every second, and see things in stereo every, whatever. Total waste of time. Does that help me in my service to God? No, it doesn't. Oh, but the Jews in Ukraine, you got to help them. Okay. Right? So we should donate. We should help them. There's no question. No question. But I have to find out, see what all the political pundits are saying and their spans. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. And I got in trouble for saying this. I'll say it again. Russia and the Ukraine have tremendous amount of Jewish blood on their hands. Nothing to talk about. Whatever happens between them, they deserve it. Nothing to talk about. The only problem is Jews are stuck in the middle. You got 400,000 Jews, not 45,000, the misnomer. You got 400,000 Jews there.
That many.
There are a lot of Jews there. They're stuck in the middle. A lot, some of them got out. Other people are trapped. And they can't get out. Right? But this is not a popular thing to say. The Jews are stuck. I agree. And it's unbelievable what's going on there. And God should have mercy on them. God should not have mercy on the Ukrainians. And should not have mercy on the Russians. And I see these posts every single stinking day. People are saying, free Ukraine, free Ukraine. They don't deserve spit in my language. They deserve to get whatever they get. You know why? Because the Gemara states clear. Everything happens for the sake of the Jewish people. Everything around us happens for the sake of the Jewish people. So if that's true, no atheist in a foxhole, nothing happens for no reason. Oh, these poor Ukrainians. No one wants innocent people to die, but you know what? They're not so innocent, are they? They were vicious. They were cruel during the war to Jews. The Russians, no different. They're not choir boys by any means. And if they blow themselves up, all the power to them. Just get the Jews out so nothing happens to them. But they have it coming. Make no mistake. Maybe they'll shut down the Roku network now because I'm going to say this. Make no mistake, they are liable. They are tremendously liable for all the Jewish blood on their hands. Go back to World War II and see. World War I, no difference. A lot of Jewish blood on their hands. Even if they didn't kill them physically, kill them spiritually. Through communism. You don't think this is payback? Think again. Oh, the poor Ukrainians. They have it coming. Oh, but it's the grandparents. That doesn't matter. It's punishment for the Jewish blood that's drenched in that area. Not a popular thing to say, I understand. People are going to say, but look at the devastation. Again, if everything is done for the sake of the Jewish people, and they have tremendous amount of Jewish blood on their hands, nothing to talk about. Review a little bit about history. Nothing to talk about. If that's the case, you don't think they have it coming? You don't think this is payback? This is payback. This is definitely payback. We got to pray. God should have mercy on these Jews. They should be able to get out. The war should end. Right? Things should, quote unquote, go back to normal. Etc. But make no mistake. They're paying the price. In all the nations where Jewish blood is drenched there and all over Europe, they're also going to pay. It's just a matter of when. God's now taking his vengeance out on Ukraine. Listen, Russia's not having an easy time. They're not having an easy time over here. But in general, they're going to pay a price. Whether it's now, whether it's later, both of them. So I don't want to hear about free Ukraine, and they're the underdogs, and they're this and that. They have a death sentence on them. The entire place has a death sentence on them. The only thing is, the Jews should get out. And God should take them out. They should be spared and let them just blow themselves up. You're going to say, come on, that's so fanatical. That's unbelievably fanatical. We look at the world through the eyes of God, through the eyes of the Torah, through the eyes of what the rabbis tell us. And the rabbis tell us in uncertain terms, everything that happens in the world is for the sake of us. So now you see, wow, look what's going on. Look at all these Jews there. You're right. There are a lot of Jews there, and they should get out. But both sides, they have it coming. They absolutely have it coming. So we have to, we have to educate our kids in the proper way and to teach them the ways of the Torah. Now, again, there are things that are not going to be PC. We're not going to be politically correct because the Torah is not politically correct. Either we believe the Torah is true or it's not true. Right? And if someone intermarries, it's over. It's over. Right? Why is it over? Because everybody knows you don't marry a non-Jew. I don't care how you define it. Webster's fifth definition, only that generation, this, that. Everybody knows. If you're affiliated, you know. You can make excuses. You can say whatever you want. Bottom line is, we got to think the way the Torah wants us to think. We have to live the way the Torah wants. Now, does that mean our lives are hunky-dory? That our lives go the way we think? Absolutely not. But it doesn't matter. Because if we get smashed, we have to get up again. And we have to pray. And we have to keep Torah. And we have to keep mitzvahs. Even if it's hard. Even if I don't have so much money. Even if I'm getting squeezed. And being stung with a hypodermic needle. I still have to keep what I need to keep. You can say, but I didn't sign up for this. Well, it's supposed to be like this and like this. Who says a person becomes religious or a person who stays religious, born religious, and everything goes the way they plan? Nothing goes the way we plan. There's a Yiddish expression, we plan, God laughs. We make all these plans and poof, things happen like, good luck. Totally things that are not expected. Totally not expected. Right? So we say, oh, life isn't fair. Is life really about what's fair? Life is not about what's fair. Life is about Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. God created the heaven and the earth. Ask Rashi, what about the nations of the world? They're going to claim, Jews stole their lands. So why does the Torah start with Genesis? Torah should start with Exodus chapter 12, which speaks about what? Rosh Chodesh, the new month. Why does it start about creation? Because God giveth, God taketh away. So the nations have no claim. They can't say, oh, this is unfair, blah, blah, blah. Don't we say might makes right? If someone's a bully and he keeps beating you up and he says, give me your lunch money, and finally we say, okay, I'm not going to take it anymore. You start working up, he says, okay, give me your lunch money, you flatten him like a pancake. Might makes right. You're not giving your lunch money, you flatten him like a pancake, not going to bother you. Right? So I would say, okay, Jews are in the lands. You think the Arabs saying, oh, it belongs to them, even though they have 21 countries, and they want this small part of the land, small land, no bigger than the size state of New Jersey. I would say, come on, bring it. Right? I should open my mouth here. Come on and bring it. Take it. You want it? Come take it. Oh, we got nuclear weapons. Shh. That's a good deterrent. That's a good deterrent. You want it? Come take it. You don't have it? Oh, you know what you're going to do? You're going to go through the UN. You're going to go through all these other organizations trying to get the land back legally. You're going to put leftists in the government. in order to give land back. So they'll give it back willingly. Then we can't defend ourselves. But the land, if God gives us the land, and now we're in the land after 2,000 years, don't you think God wants us to have it? Now, is that a guarantee? At the end of days, when the Messiah comes? No, it's not a guarantee. I would say very hard to imagine. We're not going to be here when the Messiah comes, but there is such a position without even getting into all that. Might makes right. We have the land, that's it. You want it? Too bad, tough noogies. Come get it. Right? God give it, God take it away. If he wants us to have it, we'll have it. If he doesn't want us to have the land, we won't have it. Oh, but if he wants us to give it back, a lot of ways to do it. He can put the leftists in power. Right? You can put the leftists in power. And they could give it away. Now, if anyone's ever seen a map of the West Bank, what they call Yehuda V'Shomron, it's undefensible. It's half the country, the heart of the country. Could they put the Arabs in charge of that? We get blown to bits. Can't defend that in general. But if God wants that to happen, he can pull the strings. God can do anything. Let Malachim biyad Hashem. The hearts of kings are in the hand of God. Why all of a sudden Mr. Putin decides to go into Ukraine now? You've been talking about it for a while, this, that. Why now? We don't know.
Like a river. He bends it wherever he wishes.
And the next day, but he knows. But why all of a sudden now? He did something 2018, right? In Korea, whatever. These other places. Took power here, took power there. So everything, there's a plan over here. We just don't see it. We're not privy to the information. Right? So the Jews are in Israel right now. So we have the land. Is that a guarantee? It's not a guarantee. God can take it away also. But I would say again, you want to come take it. It's yours to come take. If we don't deserve it, we're not going to have it. So go back to Genesis chapter 1. God's the one who created the world. God is the one in charge. Now, we don't see how all these things fit together. Now, could this be the beginning of the end? And the Messiah could come? Yeah. Didn't Putin speak about, using his nuclear arsenal, this and that? Could that be the beginning of the end? It certainly could. U.S. ain't getting involved, though monetarily. Giving weapons, other things, they're not getting involved on the ground. They're not interested. The world ain't interested in getting involved over here, but you have two major world powers. Two major powers over here. Some rinky-dink third world, African country trying to do something. The major world power. Major world power. So we don't see what's going on behind the scenes. God's not showing us. Could it end tomorrow? It could. In theory. Could it next week, a month? Could it continue to get a lot worse? Oh, it could. Some rinky-dink. It very well could. It's interesting enough. Who's trying to negotiate the peace over here? Israel. African country trying to do something. The major world power. Trying to negotiate the peace over here. Major world power. So we don't know. We definitely don't know. But in the end, everything's being orchestrated. Everything's being orchestrated from above. God's turning the screws over here. Totally turning the screws. In the end, we don't know what's going to be. But see, here in Israel has existed by miracles for years. You got all these countries wanting to destroy them, and ain't happening right now. So if they really want it and God wants them to have it, fine, they'll take it. Might will make right over here. I saw a political cartoon many years ago talking about giving land back for peace. So the political cartoon said, okay, before Israel gives land back for peace, America has to give California, New Mexico, back to, and Texas back to the Mexicans. They have to give Florida back to the Spanish. And then they have to give all the land they stole from the Indians. Once they do that, then we'll talk about peace. But is America ever going to do that? Never. Never going to happen. Right? So why should we give up land? Has any nation in the world ever given? We normally don't talk about politics. I'll just mention for people not aware here. No country in the world ever has given land back from a defensive war that they got the land. There was a population exchange between India and Pakistan in the 70s. But you never had such a thing. Someone fought defensive war to give land back. Never. Oh, but Israel's a right to the nations. We gotta be more moral, more this. Then we got attacked. Why did we get the land back? Why in the world did we get the land back? Not only that, I mentioned that all that middle area, Yehuda, Shomron, quote unquote, the West Bank. What's the problem? We can't defend it. That's why they took it in the first place. They were getting attacked all over. You can't defend something like that. Then you're gonna have a law of return. Millions of Arabs come back. Come on. You fought a defensive war. You lost. Game over. Checkmate. It's over. So what are you complaining about? Oh, it's ours. You stole it. We're going to go through the media. We're going to go through the whole UN. We're going to do all these things. No, even better. We're going to put a bunch of stinking leftists in power, and they're going to get the land back willingly. Oh, that's worse. That's a lot worse. No question. Could that happen? In theory, it could. In theory, it could. But the question is, you go back to Genesis chapter 1, God runs the world. God giveth, God taketh away. So if God doesn't want the Jewish people to have the land, they're not going to have the land. They'll be thrown out, as the Medrash says. And the Messiah will bring the Jews from the desert and bring them in. That could happen in theory. Hard to imagine, but that could happen. Right? So with all this, we have to remember. And, we sometimes forget this. That is, whatever we see, we don't fathom anything. We don't understand. But the point I want to make here is that we have to think the way the Torah wants us to think. And that's not an easy thing to do. Because a lot of things that the Torah says is very hard to put in our minds. And it's not politically correct. And people don't want to hear, the Ukrainians, they don't want to hear that the Ukrainians deserve what they get. And the Russians deserve what they get. Everyone will say the Russians deserve what they get. Look what they're doing. Yeah, but they get it for other reasons. Because the Gemara tells me why. Gemara says everything happens for the sake of the Jews. Oh, what you did to the Jews? Oh, you're going to pay. When? How? Where? God decides. But it's not about, it's not about, what's happening, what's happening there. And you say, oh, poor Ukrainians. Nobody wants to see people die. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see destruction. People will say, come on, it's so hard to imagine living in time, it's still war today. What do you mean? It's man's inhumanity to man. They don't care. You think Putin cares? He doesn't care. It's about power. He wants to make Russia great again. Right? He wants power, wants to consolidate power. Okay. They can pay a price. They're going to pay a price. Both sides going to pay a price. And guess what? Both sides deserve it. No question. Jews in the middle, we're going to pray for them. We're going to help them. Do whatever we can to help them. Right? That's true. But we're not privy to what's going on here. What the future is going to lead to. Someone say, oh, he's talking nuke. He could blow up the whole world. He could. That'll bring the Messiah. Okay. It could just stop. They could also stop in a month, in a week, in 2 weeks. Just stop. And then, okay, after negotiations, different things. Right? It's a powder keg over here. The whole world is a powder keg. So any of these things could escalate.
Inflation is up everywhere.
People jumping up and down. Gas in America is like $4 or $5 a gallon. I laugh.
Oh, it's over $8 here, in Canada.
From the Middle East, how much is gas for us? Like $8 a gallon, American. 8.7. It's almost $9 American a gallon. It's insane.
How much a liter?
Absolutely insane. A liter is 7 shekels a liter. Over 7 shekels a liter. So you do the math. 7 shekels times 4. It's 28 shekels divided by 3.2. It's about 8.6.
Wow.
It's about 8.7 almost. $8.70 American. But the oil comes from here. So like I laugh. People are complaining. It's $4 a gallon. Ha ha. $4 a gallon. It's a joke. It's funny in Israel. You see cars all over the place and say, well, we're getting money to pay for gas. It's how many electric cars? I don't know. Whatever. But a lot of things going on in the world. Forget. We're not even mentioning. This is just a side thing next to the Muslims that have a tremendous very strong minorities all over Europe. And that's also your powder cake. You're ready to explode. It happened anytime. So God's turning the screws. 100% he's turning the screws over here. What's going to be in the end? I don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows over here. At the end of the day, what's going to be? Could it be the end of days? Very well could be. Very well could be. All it has to do is start, using nuclear weapons, the whole world could go up. You think he cares? No, I don't think he cares. I don't think he's interested. He'll do whatever he wants. That's what madmen do. They do whatever they want. But God's turning the screws. So we go one way or the other. And now, no one's talking about COVID, because all the numbers are down. Everything's down. Right? Oh, it's going to be another 6th wave or whatever, huh? I don't think people are too worried about it right now. The numbers are way down. So it goes on the side. So now COVID took over for a long time. That's by the side. Muslims, different things, also by the side. Right now, what do we see? Okay, we see what's going on in Ukraine. So we'll see. That's the main focus right now. And what's going to be. But, again, we don't run the world here. We don't have any clue. And if God wants the Ukraine to fall and Russia take it over, it'll happen. And if he wants, thousands and tens of thousands of casualties of both, that'll happen. But the question is, question we don't have an answer to is, why all of a sudden now? Why is the flare up now? Why, Jews caught in the middle? But we do understand one thing that we mentioned before.
Bad election down in the U.S., right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. We do understand they have it coming. Both sides have it coming. And it's not an easy thing, not only to keep what the Torah says, but to look in the eyes of what the Torah says, and see what's going on.
Yeah, and own our own responsibility. Yeah, before
also,
Hashem.
Right?
But Yirah Shamayim, yeah.
There are a lot of things that the Torah says, as we mentioned before, it's not politically correct. We're not interested in being politically correct. If it's true, it's true. If it's not true, it's not true. Right? Whatever God wants, whatever we have to do. And, obviously knowing what to do and doing it, two different things. Right? As we mentioned many times. But we have to learn, and I guess that's what the point of all these classes are, is that learn to think the way a Jew thinks. The way the Torah wants us to think. Because people are going to hammer me. I guarantee, there's no doubt, people hammer me and say, come on, the Ukrainians, the underdog, they don't deserve, and look what's going on. Innocent people. In God's eyes, no one's innocent over here. You want to say, yes. You believe in a God who wants to
But
destroy,
he's merciful. He's great in mercy. Yes.
Oh, yeah. There are other attributes of God, though. There's mercy. There's divine judgments. Right? The Rambam says there's a scale in every city, every town, every state, every continent. There's a scale of good and bad. The scale's always going up and down. Good deeds, bad deeds, this, that. And once it goes down on the scale, on the side of bad, for however long, God can say, okay, everyone out of the pool, I'm gonna make a tsunami happen. I'm gonna make an earthquake. No such thing as a natural disaster. It's payback. You think there's an earthquake or a hurricane, or as they say here in Israel, a huracan. There's a hurricane. And it destroys, half of Louisiana, right? In an epicenter of a place that's covered in filth. You think that's a coincidence? Or an earthquake where the epicenter is where of all places? San Francisco. You think that's a coincidence? It's not a coincidence. Now, you're going to say innocent people. What innocent people?
Yellowstone
in other words,
erupts.
when something happens, the angel of death can go wild, the Talmud says, can take innocent people also, quote unquote. But you know what? If it's the time for a person to go, they're going to go no matter what.
That's right.
It doesn't matter. Could be in a strange way, could not be in a strange way. No such thing as a natural disaster. Right? The Ramchal says in Derech Hashem that these powers do not have power of themselves. They don't have power outside of God. So if God wants it to happen, it'll happen.
Yeah,
and there's a massive shooting there's a massive shooting. Remember a couple years ago in Las Vegas, Sin City. You think that's a coincidence? Not a coincidence. Now you say, why do these people have to get killed? I don't know. Right? I'm not in God's mind. Right? But when things happen in places of immorality and other things, that's not a coincidence. It even happen in places where not a lot of immorality or different things. We don't know why these things happen. We don't know why, but there's judgment. Yesh din v'yesh dayin. There's a judge and there's judgment. Two things go hand in hand. We may not understand it, and it doesn't matter. In 10 lifetimes, we may never understand it. Right? But there's payback. And people don't want to hear this. It's unpopular to say. You're liable for what you do.
The idea of praying for or interceding for them, is probably a little more popular.
We want to intercede for the Jews that are stuck there. We want to pray that nothing bad should happen to them, that they should be able to get out. We should not be praying in general that the Ukrainians and the Russians, there shouldn't be a lot of bloodshed. We're not praying for that. They have what they have coming. They have it coming. So we're not going to say, wow, we should pray they should die and this and that. That's a different issue. God, in the prayer of judgment that Jews say in the Shemona Esrei, in the silent meditation, we have in general in mind, not for specific people, that God should act the way he needs to. That God should judge the world the way he needs to.
Yes.
The way he needs to, not the way we think. Even if someone causes damage, other things, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. God will take care of business. And if you pray for someone, I mentioned this before, if you pray for someone to die, get sick, get damaged, you're lacking in emunah. You're lacking in faith because you're saying, essentially, God's not doing his job. That's what you're saying.
Heaven forbid.
Right? So person wants to intercede for Ukraine, they have it coming. I hate to say it, they have it coming. I mean, I don't hate to say it. People don't want to hear it. They have it coming because of all the Jewish blood. You're going to say, but they're innocent children. You're right. It's still payback. It's still payback. No one's innocent over here. You're going to say a little child, okay, let's say a little child gets killed. And there are children that get killed. Are they liable? Are they guilty right now? No. They're not guilty. But it could be this collective punishment. Mentioned this before. There's collective punishment. When God came to Samuel the prophet, right, in the book of Samuel 1, I think chapter 15, where he talks, or 16, talks about wiping out Amalek. What did Samuel the prophet say to King Saul? Wipe them all out. Men, women, and children. Wipe out everything. Animals, right? Yeah. Why the cattle? Rashi says, because they did kishuf, they did sorcery. So they tried to hide his cattle. God said, wipe them all out. You're going to say, innocent children? No. When it comes to idolatry, there's no innocent. There's no innocent. You wipe them all out. You're going to say, that's vengeance. God hates idolatry. God hates immorality. God hates sorcery, hates all these things. So what's God going to do? He's going to judge it. He's going to say, idolatry. So when it comes to idolatry, he's going to say, wipe them all out. But they didn't do anything wrong. What do you mean? They're going to breed them in order to be idolaters. So they deserve to die. They deserve to be taken care of. And God will take care of business. God will certainly take care of business, because how many times in the Torah does it say, don't be an idol worshiper, don't bow down, don't make wooden, don't make statues, this, that. He's going to take care of business. So you're going to say, oh, but these kids, they didn't deserve it. It's collective. It's punishment that's collective. They have it coming. You got to, oh, they're innocent. If God's going to say, wow, they have so much Jewish blood, we're going to wipe them all out. Or we're going to wipe out a lot of them. You think that's not fair. Just because they grew up that way. Because that's what but they're going to be indoctrinated. They're going to be indoctrinated according to the way they want to live. And they're going to train them. So you nip in the bud, wipe them out. Again, sounds a little bit fanatical. Right? But you can't, God doesn't want these people around. He totally doesn't want them around. And he wants them to be punished. So you got to say, they have to be punished for their great, for their great-grandparents or what they did. They're not innocent over here. Look what they've done. They're not innocent. We have to get this out of our heads. And if they're not innocent, they deserve what they get. Even if it looks cruel in our eyes. And kids get blown up. It's not their fault. It's collective punishment. It's a very unpopular thing to say. But the reality is there's collective punishment. The only way to say it. That's the reality. So forget about free Ukraine. Forget about all this stuff. According to the Torah, they deserve what they're getting. Again, it's just the Jews are stuck in the middle. So we have to pray and work hard that the Jews get out. But if you take the Jews out of the category, out of this whole thing, and they sit there and bludgeon each other to death, great. They have it coming. They deserve what they're getting. Either side. They deserve it. Oh, they're the underdog? No. They both have a death sentence. For what they've done. And that's the Torah way to look at it. That's the Torah approach. But people don't want to hear it. People aren't interested. They want to believe the story. Well, they're not seeing the bigger picture. Right? They're obviously not seeing the bigger picture. Right?
Yeah,
So normally,
nobody wants to imagine unfavorable conditions for themselves, right? That's where the mind likes to check out.
But come on, you see an orphanage gets blown up, let's say. Or a hospital gets destroyed. When you see, sick people, quote unquote, innocent people. It's tragic to see.
Sure.
But the reality is, how am I supposed to think according to the way the Torah wants me to think? And the way the Torah wants me to think is they have it coming. And it's collective punishment. It doesn't matter if they're young or not, or they're old and feeble, they lose their homes. You see all these people crying in this. Again, it can reach us in a powerful way. And it can pull our hearts tremendously. But we're forgetting the bigger picture. We're not seeing the bigger picture. You can't ignore it.
Yeah. No sane person would let somebody just drive a car haphazard, crash into everybody, and nobody would let that car keep driving. Somebody would have to stop it, right?
No, that's that's definitely true. But at the same time, we have to, we can't look at things necessarily at face value. We have to, first of all, you have to analyze what's going on, what's really going on, right? And when we see what's really going on, again, we'll bring in the Muslims, we'll bring them in this. You got a high percentage of Muslims where, England, France, Germany, all these places throughout Europe. And there's no love between, the secularists in these countries and the Muslims. And eventually, could very well be to be a major bloodbath over here. As the Malbim says in Zechariah chapter 14. Be a major bloodbath between Edom and Yishmael, meaning the Western world and the Muslims. Now, they're all over Europe. They have significant minorities, many countries all over Europe. Now, isn't it true? Let's just throw this out there because we mentioned it before. Isn't it true there's a tremendous amount of Jewish blood in Europe? Oh, yeah. All over Europe. There's tremendous amount of Jewish blood. Now, Could it very well be God could stir things up, make it a major bloodbath, and say innocent people are going to die? There's no such thing as innocent people here, because everything's done again. The Gemara says everything's done for the sake of the Jews. If that's the case, and Europe gets trounced in blood all over, sounds like a great movie, right? Sounds like a great movie. They get drenched in blood. You know why they get drenched in blood? Because of what they did to the Jews. Now, no Jews should get stuck there. No Jews should be touched. But listen, you get significant amount of Jews in England and in France, a few other places. Okay, could that happen? Could happen. When the Messiah comes, they're going to get.
Rabbi, I read a book just the other week on my Rocky Mountain readings called Yes to Life by Dr. Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor, and real profound work. And this was by somebody who had lost his wife, lost his family, his parents, and whatnot in the concentration camps. And yet this was somebody that could still say yes to life at all costs. There was no justifiable reason to ever consider saying no to life. Like he went from through so many scenarios that there's just no way we as humanity should be saying a no to life in any scenario. And the preservation of life is got to take a big priority, and hopefully.
What if we knew? What if we knew someone knew in the future? Hitler Yamach Shemoy V'Zichro, may his name be blotted out, may he rot wherever he is. He's a child, but you have future knowledge what he's going to do. You could spare the world of 50 million deaths. You could spare the world of a major world war. Wouldn't you take that kid and destroy him? Kill him? Wouldn't that be justified?
Well, not if it played with a timeline, like you're an intelligent man. I mean, the notion of time travel and tampering and creating paradoxes.
People make the mistake and think that something happens, the person's innocent. We don't look at people as being innocent over here, right? No one's been in this world except for a handful that have lived in this world and never sinned. And if a person sinned and it's a major thing, could he really pay a serious price? Could very well pay a serious price. There's no free lunch. So we gotta get this thing out of our head that people say, oh, they're innocent. This person's innocent. Do we really know? Do we really know?
Hashem knows. Hashem knows.
Yes. Hashem knows. So he knows what he's doing. So if he knows what he's doing, even if he plucks little kids, and and they get burnt alive, God forbid, or other terrible things, isn't he the one calling the shots? So you're going to say, well, that's cruel. But you're not in Hashem's mind. He's the one that runs the world. He knows the thoughts of men, as the Rambam says in the 13 Principles. He knows all these things. So don't you think if he knows all these things, he knows what he's doing, right? Give an example. There was in Egypt. In Egypt, they were taking babies, putting them and using them as mortar, right, in bricks. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, he wanted to stop one of the taskmasters from doing that. God says, don't do it. It's not a good idea. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't listen. The Medrash says he saved that baby, who that baby become one of the worst kings in the history of the Jews. So you ask the question, it looks totally cruel. Here's the baby being used for cement. Gonna die, being used as mortar. Being used as a brick. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, this is cruel, this is terrible, let me save the child. God says, don't do it. Moshe Rabbeinu saves the child, end result, one of the worst kings in the history of Jewish people. So what's the point? What's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is we think we know better. Right? And that's the point, I feel bad, got into all this politics stuff, but I did finish the Mishnah though, right? But get into all this politics. right? Quote unquote. The moral of the story is we don't know. We think we know, and it looks cruel, and it looks like this. We have to put, if I had the rose-colored glasses, and I, put on my George Burns, funny mask and my mustache and whatever, and say, okay, this is the reason why it's happening. Okay, right? People don't want to say it. People don't want to say they have it coming because it's quote unquote innocent life being taken. We don't believe in innocent life. That's not something we believe in. And the reason is because you make the bed you lie in. Doesn't matter. You grow up as a potato farmer in the prairies. No offense, anyone who's a potato farmer lives in the prairies, right? Doesn't matter. Ignorance is not bliss over here. You're going to pay a price. There will be a price to be paid. But at the end of the day, you got to take responsibility. And it may not look pretty. But no one goes through this world scot-free. And people will suffer. And it looks like, quote unquote, innocent people are dying. See, that's the ultimate in chutzpah. They'll say, oh, if God was this and God was that, why is God doing this? Like, you understand who God is? Read the end of the book of Job. Job didn't get it. God hammered him. Hammered him. So in our puny brains, we think, oh, we understand. And this is man's inhumanity to men. That's true. It looks totally cruel what's going on. Very true. But how are we supposed to look at it in the eyes of the Torah? Right? That's the question. And it's not about, oh, these poor Ukrainians. No. They're going to get exactly what God wants them to get. There's judgment when you see a country getting when you see a country get decimated, whether, with that quote unquote natural disasters, wars, famine, other things, there's judgments. People don't want to hear that. No, God is cruel. No. There's a scale. Every place has a scale. The Rambam says. And the actions make the scale go up or down. And if that's the case, then God at some point says, okay, I've had enough. I'm taking over. And I'm going to bring something, hopefully it's going to wake people up. Now, someone will say, the way it looks, what do I care the way it looks? We're talking about what's behind what's going on. Because if a person, the Rambam says, in the laws of fasting, if a person says this is a chance happening, and they don't learn anything from it, they're called cruel. Because we don't believe in chance happening. That's Amalek. Amalek brought this idea of doubt to the world. Atheism, no such thing as supernatural. Because what's the obvious question? The obvious question is, if God is all good, why do these things happen? Why does suffering happen? So a number of different answers. But nothing happens for no reason. Right? That's a major mistake. Nothing happens for no reason. So we may think, even in our own warped minds, we may think, oh, this is cruel, this is terrible, this is this. And it looks bad. Definitely looks bad. That is no question. Who wants to tell somebody who lost their family in a bombing, of a hospital, and say, it's collective punishment what they did to the Jews. Boy, that's going to go over well. They might as well just rip me off the Roku network for saying that, right? You're not going to convince someone the Holocaust, say, oh, look, there was so much assimilation, whatever. That's why your family was killed, because it's 80% intermarriage, in Germany, and then all over, whatever. You're going to answer that to a Holocaust survivor? No. Could that be the reason, or potentially a reason why it happened? Oh, yeah. Could very well be. We don't know why. But the problem is, in our puny minds, people think. We'll go back to the analogy. The analogy of reading a Wikipedia article on physics and uprooting everything that Stephen Hawking ever did and that he ever wrote. That's the ultimate in chutzpah. And then people say, well, you know what? I've never learned Torah. I can't read Hebrew. I've never read the Bible. But I know this cannot be God. because God doesn't do these things. Well, excuse me, you're an ignoramus. So if you're an ignoramus, I don't really care what you have to say because you never learned anything. If you never learned anything, don't open your mouth. My opinion is this. I don't care what your opinion is. I don't care what my opinion is. What does the Torah tell me? What do the rabbis tell me? How am I supposed to live my life? How am I supposed to look at the world in a proper way? Now, we said many things that are probably going to tick off a lot of people because it's not politically correct. And as Dan, the man over here, knows, we don't say things that are necessarily politically correct. We say what the Torah wants us to say. Right? Even if it's going to be painful for people to hear. And nobody ever wants to hear innocent people, innocent children being ripped to shreds, getting bombed, whatever. Nobody wants to see that or hear that. But you know what? Yesh din v'yesh dayan. There's a judge, there's judgment.
Sometimes surgery is necessary, yeah. That's
it. You know what? And you know what they say? It's going to hurt me a lot more than it's going to hurt you. But in the end, there's collective punishment. And if you even tell me their grandkids didn't deserve what the grandparents did, well, guess what? The people there, are they any lovers of Jews in the Ukraine? I don't think so. And they're showing cruelty to the Russian soldiers also. There are a lot of things going on. They have it coming. They have it coming. It just, it looks bad in our eyes because we see quote unquote innocent people. We see innocent people.
Yeah, that's what the news does, though. It sells the sizzle.
That's exactly what it does, right? They're the underdog. They should have been taken over. They shouldn't have been this. They shouldn't have been, all these things. Was the news saying all these terrible things against the Nazis, against the Jews? I don't think so. I don't think they were saying how bad the Nazis were or whatever. While it was going on, they knew it was going on.
Oh, no. Americans didn't believe it. And Viktor Frankl had said when he was released, he was talking to people just said they didn't want to believe it was even happening or they didn't know it was happening. And
even if they did, right, even if they did, listen, what did they do? They sent boats back to Europe. They didn't want the Jews here. They didn't want to get involved.
Well, even my country turned back one ship, yeah.
Yeah, so, people see what they want to see. Believe what they want to believe, and it's all about the media. It's all about what they show. Right? I remember I gave a presentation. I took a seminar course, in history on the Vietnam War. And one of the things I had to give a presentation and write a paper. I spoke about the Tet Offensive. Anyone knows anything about the Tet Offensive? I think 1968 it was. That the media totally lied. Totally lied to the American people what was going on. And how bad
all my life, yeah.
So the media, I wouldn't trust a word that they say. Wouldn't trust a word what they say. And history also is his story, right? So they just write what they want to write according to their agenda. And everybody has an agenda. You have to know how to look between the lines. Read between the lines. Right? One last thing is we're going to finish up. What's the second biggest lie next to Christianity? Is the fact there's such a thing as the Palestinian people. Anyone who knows anything about modern Israeli history, they don't exist. They never existed. Never. But the media, academia, everybody says the same stupid lie. Same lie. There were the Palestinian people. We threw them out. They deserve to have the land back. All these things. Mark Twain. Samuel Langhorne Clemens, as he was known. Right? Came in the late 1800s. Was there a Palestinian people here? No. Were there any people here? No. The place was flattened like a pancake. Said exactly what the prophets say was supposed to happen. When the Byzantines were here, and the Ottomans were here, and the English were here, was there a Palestinian people? Survey says, I did a lot of that on Purim, right? There are all kinds of trivia questions, different things. And if they got it wrong, they had to drink. If they got it right, they got a marshmallow. But if they got it wrong, I would be survey says, Family Feud. Come on. Any case, I digress. But the point is this whole thing was made up. This whole thing was propaganda. The Arabs are the biggest liars in the world. And that's what they're set up to be. That's what the Torah says. They have their hand in everybody. Everybody has their hand in them. So they steal, they're liars. That's their nature. Also not popular to say. But in general, that's the biggest lie, one of the biggest lies out there. Doesn't exist. We, the Israeli people, the Israelis made them into an entity. Nobody else. We did it. Foolishly. So now we should bring all the Arabs back. Nobody wants these people anyway. None of these countries want them, whatever, not to get into politics. But these people, this people as an entity never existed. So why they keep perpetuating the same lie? Lies stick. Right? Why they keep perpetuating the same lies? Evolution. Same reason, because if I don't believe in evolution, what's the only other alternative? Torah. Bible. Oh, not going to say that. Not Al or Steve, right? Not Einstein or Hawking. They're not going to say that. Doesn't matter if there's tremendous evidence that the Torah might be true. Okay. So you got a lot of lies out there, and who's perpetuating it? Newspapers, electronic media. Same thing. They're perpetuating all these lies. And we're stuck believing, listening to all this garbage. And there's so much ample proof out there, nobody wants to hear it. You got all these Christians that are ignoramuses, they don't know anything about their own religion, but they'll never look into truth. What? You think I've been lied to for 50 years? Yeah. You've been lied to. You've been sold a bag of bones. 100%. Look into the truth. No, this is the truth. Who comes out of it? Anyone listening right now? Who comes out of it? They come out of it because they're searching for emes. They're searching for truth. And the Gemara says, if a person's searching, they want to go on the right path, God will help you. If you don't want to go on the right path, God will not stop you. You want to live in fantasy? Oh, that's beautiful. God will let you live in fantasy. Right? Bud Bowl, right? Fantasy. CFL, couple months. Yeah, fantasy. That's what people
March
want.
Madness going on coming up
Madness.
now.
That's it. March Madness. Come on. That's what people want. That's what interested people. God says, what about me? What about the truth? Right, on a somber note, the Torah giant of the generation passed away Friday, right before Shabbos here. He's going to be buried tomorrow. Chaim Coffman of blessed memory. Father was a disciple of Gon. He was the Torah giant of the last generation. And at the end, probably going to be 1 million people, close to 1 million people going to this road tomorrow to show cover to Torah, proper respect for a Torah giant. Probably 700,000 to 1 million people. Gonna be, whatever. A lot of people gonna be there. So we're living now in a generation that we don't have them anymore. And there are not too many Torah giants left of that caliber. My Rebbe being one of them. I don't know if there's anyone bigger than him right now. After Rabbi Kanievsky just passed away. It was very sudden. Had a heart attack and that was it.
Well, he wasn't a young buck anymore, though, was he?
He was 94, okay, but no one expected him to die. No one expected him to die. Wasn't feeling well, fine, but, by the time they started telling people to pray for him, he was already, basically passed away. A very short time afterwards.
Yeah, it could be a clot.
So
you just don't
now
know.
we don't have that protection. We don't have that protection now, of his righteousness. So now it's a different world. When Torah giants leave this world, just on that, we don't have that same divine protection, anymore. So, we got to be a lot more careful.
Hashem knows the timing, like you said.
Yeah. So a friend of mine told me today, he said, yeah, Messiah's going to come now because, all these crazy things, we don't have him now. And who knows, right? We don't know. We don't know, but I'm just pointing out people of his caliber, we don't have too many left. My rabbi is one of the few that still have, had that connection to the previous generation. Also the same age, about 7, 9, a little bit older maybe, a little younger, whatever it is. He should be well. So this is a major blow. Major blow for the Jewish people. Again, and if a righteous person dies, it's because of sins of the generation. You can say, fine, he's 94 years old. How long do you think a person's going to live? Okay. But he gives that divine protection to the generation. And he can take a lot of things on himself to protect the Jewish people. When that soul's not here anymore, it's a lot more dangerous. A lot more dangerous for us and the rest of the world. He should plead, in front of God to bring the Messiah.
Well, maybe like Elijah, some mantle will pass to somebody.
Yeah. Right. So
Hashem knows.
it's a tremendous blow to the Jewish people. For two reasons. One is A, because he passed away, but B, it's just in the nature, it's just sudden. Totally unexpected. So, that's a somber note, to end on. But, we gotta right the ship. We gotta be better. We gotta, a lot of things that we need to do better because, we don't have that same divine protection that we had before. So that ends Mishnah 8. That's part 21.
Done.
Next week for me, anyway, we're changing the clocks. Thursday night, so it's going to be back to 9 o'clock for me. So we'll be
I appreciate
on,
you starting early in Israel for you, so we were at the same time.
So we'll be back in normal time. It's just to be shorter time after Shabbos, but we'll still be normal time. And we'll hit the next mission, which says we're going to speak about how long it takes. That, if you studied much Torah, don't take credit for yourself because that's what you're created to do. So we're going to have all my classes hopefully tomorrow. We're going to give the class the book of Leviticus, 4 o'clock Eastern time. Then we have Tanakh Talk. Hopefully we'll see what the topic is. No Hide Nations after that. And I have my conversion class later. So my Q&As, we're going to be back up and rolling, rocking and rolling this next week. Get back to where we need to get to.
Still sharing Torah. Yep.
Yeah, that's it. Energize the bunny. We don't stop. Just keep going.
Right on. Well, thank you so much, Rabbi. Episode 100, you heard it. Thanks so much for finally finishing chapter 2, Mishnah 8, and I look forward to moving forward. So we're aiming to be back at the exact same time next week, except it'll be an hour later in Israel, as the Rabbi mentioned. So we're going to sign out for now. Rabbi, we hope that you have a wonderful week and that this that the divine presence continue to rest in Israel and rest with the rabbis, and may this mantle pass on to somebody there, and somebody start to step up in a greater degree, because the protection that you mentioned, we don't want to see that diminished in any way, shape, or form, and we are so thankful to see people in Israel starting to actually shine the light of Torah, literally shine it. And I think you did a wonderful job today. So we'll call it quits for now, but we will see you guys next week. Till then, have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye for now.